Hey everyone, welcome back to the second to last episode of Friday Nights on the Bayou. I'm your host, Grant Sashra, of course, owner of Recruit Sports Media, and then also a reporter and columnist for Crescent City Sports. I'm joined here by Jace Lejeune of Ground Football, my co-host for most of the year. Jace, two things. One, I can't believe it's finally over. It just seemed like it was yesterday. We did our first show, kind of previewing the whole season as a whole, giving our takes, for teams to watch out for and players to watch out for, maybe a team that everyone's kind of overlooking and stuff like that. And then number two is what a crazy weekend we had last weekend. I know the first 2 days were awesome. The last day was in the sense of like, for if you enjoy high school football here in the state of Louisiana, it was just a bad day. The 2 games we expected to be like awesome after the first few days were just fantastic, just ended up being duds. Jay, so I mean, just kind of give a brief summary about this overall week, just the show in general, but then also the weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, man, usually going to the dome and watching like the whole slate of games, Grant, I have to figure out, man, like every game's been awesome right now, and Saturday's the big day. So it can't get any better than this. And then you head into Saturday, the ball was kicked off and twice, and unfortunately, we hit those blowouts because it happens. When you play 8 games over a 3-day period. It used to be 9, 9 games over a 3-day period. You expect, one or two, a couple games to end up being like that. And it just so happened to be both on the last day in running clock situations. And that's not what we expected going in. I can definitely tell you that. But overall, it was still a great weekend. I mean, the first 2 days were awesome. Great football games. And even though the third day was blowouts, there were still a lot of storylines, and we're going to talk about a lot of shockers as well on that final day. We're going to talk about, but overall, Grant, I mean, it's been awesome talking with you all season long about all these games. I mean, in terms of the high school teams, who's doing well. It's been a fun roller coaster ride, and looking forward to get back in line for next year, man. Get on the next one, but can't believe the season's finally over. It seems like it's been yesterday since we started this thing, and yeah, I'm already missing football season, but it's going to be right around the corner before we know it.
Yeah, I just went to your channel because I just went to your channel. I just realized Ryan Hardy. I'm not sure how long he's been committed to your bowl game, but he's committed to bowl game. Yeah, he had a big game those past games. I think it was
and I'll tell you what, that Cecilia game we're going to talk about a little bit more, Grant. But how about the 2 Gridiron Football Bowl game commits? They were the one that finished the deal because Ellis Stewart, I mean, he caught the game-winning touchdown, and Ryan Hardy was the one who had the sack. We'll definitely talk about a lot on the show. But
to Franklinton fans, it was a sack. or no, to Cecilia fans, it was a sack. Oh no, Franklinton fans, it was a sack.
It was just
a strip sack.
But
strip sack.
It was a strip sack.
We'll talk about all that in a second. That's going to be one of our main storylines. We're going to start with some storylines before we break down the games. The first thing is first. I think the most glaring one, the most obvious one is District 258 looked bad.
It was a rough weekend.
They looked bad. I mean, like, I'm not saying the teams were bad. They just, on this particular day, they just looked bad. And
rough day. What'd you say? Rough day. It was a rough Saturday.
They were bad. They were bad. I mean, it's not their fault. I mean, look, I'll say this. Like, it wasn't like they're not bad teams. They're awesome. There's a reason why they went to state championship. Like, matter of fact, the first game, Alexandra and Karr, we all thought that was going to be the game of the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thursday, all the games were great. Friday, all the games were great. And Edna Karr and Ash was the game everyone around the state was talking about. It's rare in this day and age, in the split era of Louisiana high school football, that you get the top 2 teams playing each other in the state championship.
Yeah,
it really is. And Jace, the one thing we both kind of warned about going into this game was we were kind of worried about Ash. And, because both the guys they play quarterback, they play mostly Carson Sellers, but Matt also gets some
he did
get some snaps as well. I mean, he's gotten some snaps throughout the year, but they're both awful. And when you go up against a Carr defense like they have with Richard Anderson, Aiden Hall, all these different guys, we wondered how much is getting in their heads, let alone being in the biggest game of the year. And then also, how was Alexander's offensive line was going to stack up against Carr's defensive line?
Yeah,
and it was very clear from the beginning because the second play of the game, Carson Sellers throws a pick to Aiden Hall, throws it right to him, and he just runs it in for the end zone for a pick six. And I remember when you were walking down towards me, and Jace, I went to this. It's like it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, I know you. Usually, I don't, usually when I give something nothing, you don't do that. I usually don't do that. But, I just knew at that moment,
right.
They were at that point, it was not going to be great the rest of the way. And it was not.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe you had, a little shed of optimism. Like, okay, let's see how they respond. And, then Carr, they have John Johnson throws a touchdown pass. Man-child, and okay, never mind. It's over by that point. But yeah, I mean, I talked about on my show with you when you were on for Bowling the Boot too about this, but just in watching it, getting to call the Catholic and the Carr game as well, maybe realize this too because I know Catholic has a pretty good running back and a really good offensive line, and Ash's offensive line is good, Grant. But I still think Catholic was the better O-line. And they had trouble against the speed against Edna Karr. I knew going into this game it was going to be okay. They're going to have the only key to success because Edna Karr will have a game plan for JT Lindsey, and that's what Ash wants to do. Even though they can throw the football, I mean, their bread and butter is running the football with JT Lindsey. And if Edna Karr can shut that down, which it was a good chance that was going to happen. It was going to come down. I said the key players are going to be Max and Carson in terms of they would have to have a really good game throwing the football, and it was just kind of tough sledding. They weren't able to do that, and then you make matters worse on the other side of the football. It was just the speed. The speed of Edna Karr was just too much for Ash, and it was a tough mismatch. And when you throw 4 interceptions and it still doesn't make a difference. That just shows you how good this Edna Karr football team is. And John Johnson said in the post game press conference, he was asked how does he rate his performance? He said 6 out of 10. I mean, I felt those interceptions, it's crazy saying that because he's the MVP. But I mean, you saw what he did on the ground. He still used his legs, and really the last 2 weeks, I mean, showed against Catholic and Ash how big of a deal his legs are, and he did enough through the air. I mean, Teron Francis, he didn't have a catch against Catholic, but comes up with 2 touchdown catches as well. In that game, they're able to run the football a little bit, so it was just a dominant performance. You knew that was one of the options. It could happen. It was there was a chance that this could be a great game, Grant. I mean, that was it was the most highly anticipated games in the state. But you also knew the possibility that this could be a blowout, like Carr, and that's what happened. And the Carr, a lot of people were saying that not only this is the best team in the state of Louisiana, but this is the best Carr team that Bryce Brown's had. And Bryce Brown's had 4 other state championship teams that I remember covering and I remember watching. But he's not going to say it. He said, of course, he's not going to say this team's better than the other teams and all that. But after seeing this team and the other previous teams that went on that run of 4 straight championships, I do believe that this is the best Edna Karr team that I've seen.
Yeah, no doubt, Jace. And we're going to talk some more about that game later on. But the other game, that was a complete disaster. Really, I think
that was shocking.
I think that made it even worse. Just because even though Carr and Ash were seen as the 2 best teams in the state, you also had a feeling okay, besides Catholic, they've literally destroyed everybody that they played. So you also had to realize, okay, this game could all. I mean, as much as we want this game to be as great as possible, it's also very possible this could be a blowout.
Yeah.
This game, on the other hand, if it was going to be a blowout, a lot of people expected that Ruston was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The week before, Ruston beat Destrehan 44-7, and that Destrehan team was healthy. That was a fully healthy Destrehan team, and they're hot. And they're and there was, I think they scored 60 points 3 of their last 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, like everyone, picked Ruston, and then Central laid a butt whooping. Like an absolute, but 42-0, Jace. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. First touchdown pass. I'm like, the deep one to make it 7-0. Like, ooh, okay, such a game to play. And then when Josh Brantley muffed the snap, and then TK Mays picked up the scooper score, I'm like, uh-oh. And then when Kelsey scored again, when it made 21-0, I'm like, oh, this game's over. This game's over.
Yeah.
This game's over.
Yeah, same feeling, Grant. You mentioned it, and I was high on the Central team. I had them going to the state championship. I didn't have them winning. I had Ruston win like everybody else did, but just a big reason was because of how much the offense has struggled, even in their wins. That they needed a blocked field goal return for 93 yards to beat Neville. When it was at the time, could have been 16-10. It was a big momentum swing when you return a blocked field goal the other way, and now it's 17-13 when you look at that. So that was a big momentum play. But you look before that, they struggled against West Washita as well offensively. So this was a team going in. You knew that they were talented. They got some really good receivers. Jackson Furman's one of the best quarterbacks in the state. You just haven't really seen that offense really turn it up probably since maybe before the Catholic game. I mean, it seemed like ever since the Catholic loss, it seemed like they've been winning games, but we haven't seen their offense hit their full peak. And then when you've seen Jackson Furman show that in the Dome, I mean, you know that they're motivated. They heard all the outside noise. And this is a point where it's affected both teams. I feel like Central's heard the outside noise. Nobody's giving them a shot. You mentioned when we talked earlier, Grant, I don't think Central fans even
no, none of them did. None of them. Everyone. Here's the thing: Central fans have the same mentality that Brother Martin fans had when they went to the Dome like 2 years ago, which is like they're just happy to be there. I don't think they expected to win. No, let alone. Here's the thing: I think they all wanted to win. I mean, Central had a good enough team to win, but in that fashion, they were like, everyone's like, "What is going on? We shouldn't be doing this at Ruston of all people." Like we're talking about a Ruston team that had been to the state championship 3 years in a row.
Yeah, 3 years in a row. And
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned 3 years in a row. This is a Ruston team that won the state championship, and they defeated that. They broke a long drought too, as far as the state championship last year. So they know how that feels. And you go in, and everybody was talking about how good Ruston is, and sometimes, like Nick Saban says, you buy into that rat poison. And I think that's what happened with Ruston. They came in thinking that, hey, we're the defending state champions. We're going to take care of business. The Central team's never been there. And there's a big part of me that feels like that they overlooked Central because they came in thinking, but hey, you got to play the game.
Yeah, that's something, and that's interesting that Jared Ball also didn't mention that in the press conference where he mentioned that like the media kind of like they should like they were basically saying, oh, Russ is going to kill Central, Russ is going to kill Central, even though Coach Ball also knew like, okay, the Central team is really good. Like we should not be like downplaying who they are. I mean, their head coach is David Simno. David Simno is the top 5 coaches in the state right now.
Oh yeah,
like and he's only 38 years old and has won 3 state led his 3 different programs and 3 state championships.
Yeah,
since 2019. That's the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of coaches on that list that's taken them like a whole career to do that. And if
from Ajin, that's a great example.
Look at I mean that's an incredible stat as well. But yeah, David Simmons hasn't even reached 40 yet. And he's done this at Central in a second year. So the program is just a really high level right now, and he's done a really good job of making guys believe that they can win. and a lot of people thought that he was crazy for leaving Catholic. And but
Oh
he,
yeah, I remember that. That was front page news when that.
yeah,
I remember that. That was crazy.
and a lot of people said, he said that the reason he left was he wanted to build something from the ground up. He wanted to show people how good of a coach he is, and he's really built this.
Yeah.
And he wanted to show how good he is because anybody at Catholic. I mean, you look at the last couple of head coaches that's been at Catholic High, and the last coaches. I mean, you go back to Dale Weiner. It's been Dale Weiner, Gabe Fertitta, David Semino, and then you see what Hudson Ford. They've all won state championships. So he wants to go somewhere and really cement his legacy somewhere. And why not Central? And he's already done that in the second year. And I know I see the comment old school. And yes, like this is why I was so high about the Central football team because of their defense. I thought their defense was going to have a great game. I mean, I thought that they would keep Central in the football game. So the defense performance doesn't really shock me too much because I'm really high on their defense. But the way their offense performed against that Ruston defense, that's what really shocked me about that whole game. And Ruston, like, you did not expect them to play that bad. It was a mixture of not only Central playing lights out, but Ruston it's like it seemed like they forgot that a football game was going on that night. They had 90 total yards of offense, Grant. That is a record of fewest yards by an offense. I think the last time that's happened in the state championship game was what West Monroe gave up. Their defense gave only 108, and this was only 90. And I mean, think about it. The one interception Jackson Furman threw, that was returned 44 yards. So Ruston's defense had about half of their offensive yardage, which is insane. But yeah, it was just one of those games that Central dominated that football game from the start to the finish, and they definitely deserve that state championship. And we're going to talk about it. I know that's on the score taker at the bottom, at the ticker at the bottom. But yeah, I mean, Central just owns Monroe the Monroe area.
Yeah, District 2-5A, really. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And and of course, West Walsall as well.
Yeah.
But Jace, Raymond Navarro mentioned District 2-5A got punched in the jaw and couldn't mount any kind of a fight. 98-5, we deserve a refund. Right, and like, and the thing is, too, is like that 98 points is more than the Saints have scored their last 4 home games, by the way.
I believe that.
I mean, my God.
I believe that.
Anyway, So, this is what old school said earlier. Central had the best tackling defense I've seen in a while. They were awesome. They were awesome defensively. Karr, Catholic, Central top 3 in the state. Central pressed all of us wrong. They came to play, and and here's the thing. That's what we said before the year. Like Central was a team that we all both thought was a legit state title contender.
Yeah,
we both thought that. I mean, although I know I didn't pick them to the state championship game. I picked them to go to the semifinals. That said, they were at worst the semifinal team, which I was right about. And which they did go to the semifinal. And you picked them to be a state championship game, although you picked them to lose against Ruston is the exact opposite.
Right.
And then also Catholic. I mean, how good is that Catholic team, really? If you really think about it, they beat Central 35-17.
They did. They beat Central 35-17, Grant. And really, looking back at it, they lost to Edna Karr 21-19. I mean, that's probably as pretty of a loss on the road, too. That's as pretty of a loss you can think about, too. Especially how this Edna Karr team has been playing all year long. But right now, I mean, I'm sure we'll have a debate about it, too. I know you won't have one more show and talk about it a little bit more. But I would say, those are my final top 3. And that's a perfect top 3 at the end of the season. I think it's Karr, number 1. I got to go with Catholic, but they head-to-head over Central. And Central is number 3.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned earlier today, it was kind of fun. It was really funny. You remember, like, we were talking earlier today, and you mentioned, I wonder how Central could match up against Karr. I don't think even Central fans want that. They were walking into the dome when Karr was whooping butt on season.
I would love to see how Edna Karr's offense and Central's defense will play against each other.
Yeah.
I think that'll be fun. That'll be a fun matchup. Just give me that side of the football playing against each other. I think that'll be really fun to see.
Yeah, but I think Central's seen enough. Like, we've
Yeah.
already won the state championship. We don't need to see us
Oh,
play
yeah,
this car. Like, wait till next year.
You know, I'm
What's
all
that? That was that, bro. Like, like that game was just like, oh my god, like just. I mean, Central were like just in awe, like, oh my god, they're whooping Central Ruston right now. The car game were like, is the game over yet? Because it wasn't like Ash. It was like I'm like I have a lot of respect for Ash. Ash will get back to the dome eventually. It's just that they ran into a generational.
Yeah, I don't think
team. Like
Ash was playing that bad. I really don't think Ash was really playing that. It was just like they couldn't really, they couldn't do anything in the car team. Like there was just too much. But I mean, I give them credit. They kept on playing hard and they kept fighting, But yeah, they were just too. It was just too much for them to handle.
how about Randy Besores? How about Cecilia de Diesel? It's such a fight District 2 5A champs defeating West Monroe Neville Rusty. Yeah, we just mentioned that actually. Just like already, we just mentioned that they're basically the District 2 5A champions. Although I don't think they want to challenge Carr for that title after they beat Alexandria.
No, there's been the other years, Grant, you would debate. It's like, okay, I wish this team would play this team to really sell who number one is in the state. There's no debate here. It's that.
It's not even close. Anyway, let's get to our next storyline, which was South Louisiana coming out strong for the state championships. I believe they were 4-1. And if you want to include Alexandria as part of North Louisiana, I guess we can say that because a lot of people down here consider Alexandria North technically. But
Central,
but they were 4-1. Central and Edna Karr, South Plaquemine being Haynesville, which I want to kind of circle back to this comment that was left earlier by Old School. I think it's here we go. South Plaquemine Hurricanes. I told you.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Yeah, you did. Andy reminded Jace all weekend about South Plaquemine.
Oh yeah, he did. So
did you remind him about Carl over Alexandria?
I did tell him.
What did he say?
So Andy was just like, yeah. I mean, it was one of the things that in the car was just too much. So
that's what the same thing I told you. We were like saying, hey, like we picked our car to win, but and we expect to be a close game. But if we're ever going to be a blowout, it's because quarterback play, losing the line of scrimmage, and then also the speed, the receivers, the size, the speed, athleticism. Because I want to say this too. Carl, remember, these two teams are familiar with each other. Last year was a really close game between the two.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forget about it. They played each other the year before, and it was like a one-score game.
Right. And I think I even that was kind of my quiz question, and you got it right on Ball on the Boot about what was Ash's last loss, and it was to end the car in the quarterfinals, and I think it was 40-34. So it was like we thought that Ash was like, well, this was last year's team. They're better this year. Maybe they beat some great teams all year long. Like, you saw why a lot of people thought that this could be a game. A lot of people were saying Ash could play, be the number one team in the state, and it just showed that the matchup it was just too much for Ash, and but it still doesn't take away though what kind of season they had, and because with the schedule they had, I wouldn't have told you they went undefeated with that schedule, but I was really high on this team. I thought they were going to be a 7-3, 8-2 team that would give teams a lot of trouble, and but that schedule to go undefeated to win that district, there's nothing to hang their hat on about that. And for them to go to the state championship, and I know Coach Bobman says they expected to win. They expected just to come here and just be happy that they're here. They want to win a state championship, and I think I think it's going to eventually happen for Ash. It's just they just run a buzzsaw in the car. I don't know the 85 Bears could do anything against that team. But yeah, this is since I've been covering a lot of great teams, Grant, in Louisiana high school football. I don't remember a team off the top of my head that was as good as the Southern Car team was.
Yeah, exactly. But also just, as we were talking about South Louisiana over North Louisiana, just of course, as I mentioned, South Louisiana went 4-1 against North Louisiana teams. The only loss was St. James against Sterlington. That was a very close game. And then and really just in seven of the eight state championship games, they all featured at least one South Louisiana team, and three of those were both games that featured both South Louisiana teams. Just a great showing for South Louisiana. Also, it definitely showed in the attendance. I mean, the attendance was much better this year, just because the teams were closer to the dome this year than in years past. Especially last year, we had a lot of North Louisiana teams. But not only that, Jace, I mean, also Lafayette was 3-0. I mean, Lafayette, and we kind of said this earlier this year. Is this the golden age of Lafayette high school football? Because it just seems like how like Monroe was just like rolling. It was just like rolling, winning state championships in the 90s, especially 80s and 90s. It just seems like that's what's going on with Lafayette right now. I mean, especially with LCA, St. Thomas More, just like in the past few years, St. Thomas More, LCA, Cecilia, Opelousas, Vermilion Catholic. Catholic New Iberia. I mean, just look at all the teams that have won, that just have been highly successful out of the area, and just look at what they do not only throughout the playoffs, but when they get to the state championship, they just dominate.
Like you said, Grant, it's been three teams really in that area that we don't talk about. They're not the first three or four names to talk about. The three teams that won in the dome. And usually you think of Acadiana, usually you think of LCA or St. Thomas More. But, I mean, this year, you had Catholic New Iberia.
Let's see, Catholic New Iberia. You had Vermilion Catholic, and Cecilia. So those aren't really the three teams that go to your mind first in terms of state championships. So not only they've been winning state championships, Grant, but it's been a lot of different teams that have been represented in that area to win state championships. And another team that, remember, Edna Karr was trying to go for 5 straight. They were trying to go for a 5-peat, and Karen Crow was the team that finally beat that streak in 2020. So. That area in terms of talent, it shows you how deep that area is in Lafayette. And every year we look at the end of the year, say what area claims to have the best football talent in the state. And we've had argument about it in the offseason, but Lafayette, they make a really good case. Just look at the state championship teams that they have, and the state championships that were represented this weekend.
Yeah, and it's just an awesome showing from Lafayette. Also, Jon Jon Dartez finally picking up the state championship trophy for not only for himself but his team and the program over that Vermilion Catholic. Congratulations to him, the Screaming Eagles, and Coach Prejean for his first state title as a head coach. I think not only you have a strong show from Lafayette, but also a very strong show from New Orleans. I know Franklinton and St. James ended up just falling short. But really, screw it. Let's dive into it. Let's talk about the controversial calls, really, Jace. Yeah. I think there's two that really stood out. There are a lot, throughout the playoff, throughout the Prep Classic. It just seemed like the refs never really overturned anything until the Cecilia Franklinton game. But before we get to that game, especially, let's talk about the first one. The first glaring one I think that we should talk about was, so right before the end of the first half, Brandy's probably a good point, huh? BC got behind their team in the big way. Brock Prejean won a state championship in 2003 as a player, and that was a head coach for Vermilion Catholic. So that's a very interesting stat. Thank you, Randy. But going back to what I was saying, so the Dunham Catholic New Iberia game, it was right before the end of the half. So the last play of the first half, Elijah Haven throws a Hail Mary, throws it up there, and it gets caught in the end zone by Darius Washington. And by the way, they cannot stop him throughout the first half. I'm surprised that he didn't really get more touches in the second half, because They could not stop him. Maybe they schemed up against him pretty well in the second half, but they had a hard time trying to get to him in the second half. But at the end of the first half, they throw up to him. And he's got he's also a basketball player for Dunham too, so he's got serious hops.
Yeah, their basketball team is gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, he jumps up, catches the ball, and and 1 foot is in the end zone. So clearly, you would think it's a touchdown. They wrote it incomplete, but they reviewed it to go check it out. And if you did look at the replay, it was very clear it was a touchdown catch.
Yeah, it was.
You know what happened? The play stood.
Yep.
And that changed the whole entire game, really. And then also coach Neil Weiner said that he never got really any explanation why they decided to go with the call what they had, because it was glaringly obvious.
Give you reasoning, right? Like the rule in the field stands. The receiver did not change. They gave you an explanation, right? It was just a rule when the field stood. Incomplete. Yeah,
and then the next game, you had the real controversial one. I know a lot of Franklin fans are commenting on. Matter of fact, my friend Jacob, he actually was commenting on Gridiron Football. That's how I didn't know he had a Twitter account. That's how I followed him. Like when I saw all his comments about.
We got a bunch of comments on that.
Yeah. And here we go. They said they couldn't confirm he finished to the ground, or that's what I was told.
Yeah.
Is that from the dumb catch, right?
Yeah, that was from the dumb catch, and I think that was the only thing I can think of. The foot was clearly in, but I think they were saying like they weren't totally sure that he caught the ball and landed to the ground. I think that was the reasoning behind it, but they said there wasn't video evidence to really show that he did not fully possess it to the ground. And I think that was but to me, after looking at all the angles, surely looked like he.
It was a touchdown. It was clearly a touchdown. I mean,
but just trying to figure out, okay, what were they thinking, right? Like there had to have been some logical reasoning to what they were thinking, and so I mean that's the only thing that I can think of that they were thinking.
Anyway, the next game, which is the grand finale, at Cecilia and Franklinton, of course. And then Franklinton's final drive, Jacob Crane gets sacked. The ball comes up, but it was rolled down, but the ball was out, and Cecilia recovered it. So they went back to look at it to see if it's a fumble, and it was. I mean, looking at the replay, it was inconclusive, right? Yeah. It was inconclusive. That's what it seemed like. So you would think the play would stand.
Yeah.
But then they overturned it.
They did.
And it was like, wait, so there's, I mean, where was the evidence that he fumbled the ball? And it was like, even if he did, even if it didn't seem like he had fumbled it, it was so inconclusive. You had to let the play stand.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to have replay, here's my opinion. If you're going to have replay in the state championship games, and you're going to take all that time up on the monitor and then come out and make the wrong call, what's the point of instant replay?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of spending all this money on replay if you can't get it right?
Now, and here's the thing, too. They need to figure out, okay, who are the video officials that are communicating with the referees on the field? Because you need to have, if you're implementing video replay in the high school state championships, keep in mind, Grant, these referees, they don't deal with it all year. They don't deal with video replay, and they're not used to that. So you need like a college, like officiating crew, at least from the top end, in terms of videoing and letting the officials down on the field know like what they're exactly thinking to really help with the situation. Because at the end of the day, the high school referees, that's not what they're used to. You don't go to Zachary. They don't have Vincent replay at Zachary with their big jumbotron. So I mean, they're not used to this. So you have like college officials up there really talking to the referees down there and tell the referees what they're thinking, and the referees down there need to just agree with the call, whatever they're telling them. But yeah, that was tough. That was a tough call either way. I think if it was ruled a Franklinton fumble, I think it would have stood. I think it would have stood.
Yeah. Exactly. That's my point. Like, because if the play was ruled a fumble at the beginning, and then you came back as inconclusive evidence of fumble. Okay, then that's fine. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But my thing was that you ruled him down.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you overturn it, but there wasn't enough evidence to overturn it.
Yeah.
Well, and that was my biggest issue with it. And
go back and look at the replay and just explain to everybody what it kind of looked like. It looked like Jacob lost control of the ball. It looked like it was a fumble originally. Then he regained control of the ball, and his knee went down. So I think that's what everybody is debating about. It's like, oh, he loses the fumble there. He doesn't lose possession here. And then Cecilia fans are saying he lost it there. Franklinton fans saying, well, he regains it here and his knee's down. So that's why either way, whatever the call in the field should be, it should have stood. And the issue here with that was the call on the field was that he was down, and the overrule that call was big. And then you also had in that same game, it was like early in the second half, right? That was with the interception when both the Cecilia DB and the Franklinton receiver were both bowing for the football. So yeah, we've gotten a couple calls like that in back-to-back games too, and because like before that, we never really had any major issues. I mean, it slowed the game down a little bit, but we never had like a big issue until we saw what happened towards that Friday evening.
Yeah, and Randy said all the guys in the replay booth got to start as members of the Louisiana High School Officials Association, Louisiana. And several rules experts were also there for consultation purposes. So I mean, again, like I respected what they do, and I know it's a hard job, but
yeah,
you can't have a call like the Dunham one was pretty bad. That was a pretty bad call in my opinion because it was clearly a touchdown. The other one basically determined the outcome of the state championship game, right? It really did, and there was not enough evidence to overturn that call, right? I'm not buying for Franklin. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm just saying, like, as a fan, as somebody who's watched the sport for a very long time, there wasn't enough evidence to overturn that. But Jace, you make one last point, and then we'll have to move on.
Yeah, at two quick points. I gotta say, an underrated thing that gets lost in this whole shuffle was how about the call for Neil Warren to take the delay of game, give them 5 more yards back, to throw the Hail Mary.
Yeah,
that's really understanding your personnel. That's really understanding your team. That was a brilliant call by Neil Warren to take the delay of game. And it's crazy to think that was also a 3-point game. That was also a difference in the win or loss. And then the second point I'm gonna just say here before we wrap up is it's a tough job, but you need to find people that are used to dealing with video replays. And even though Randy made a good point about all these officials and what their background, like how much of their background deals with instant replay. So that's just another thing that we'll have to figure out.
Yeah. Also, just before we move on, I also want to mention, because we want to segue into what you're doing over at Gridiron Football. But Randy said 3 All-Star games this weekend. The Red Stick Bowl at 1 p.m. at Zachary. Saturday, you have the I-20 Bowl in Ruston. And then that's 2 p.m. And then the North Shore All-Star Games at 2 p.m. on Saturday at Strawberry Stadium on Southeastern's campus. But Jace, you also have a big bowl game coming up on New Year's Eve. I know you guys are wrapped up roster spots, and I'll give you a chance to promote what you guys are doing right now for the Gridiron Football All-American game that will be played at Memorial Stadium in Baton Rouge, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's correct, Grant. I appreciate it. It's going to be December 30th. It's going to be played at Memorial Stadium. We're making the game a little bit bigger. It's getting a little bit bigger and better each and every year. We got a lot of really good talent in this bowl game. Senior talent, we got states represented, Louisiana. Majority of it is Louisiana, but we have Texas represented. We also have Alabama, Florida, and we even have Oklahoma and New Mexico. So those are the states that are being represented in the bowl game. So we're really excited about that. We're also going to have a little bit of a wrinkle with our junior high games too. So you know how we make the argument about what area of the state has the best talent. Well, we're going to try to see what area of the state has the best young talent coming up, because we have 3 different junior high teams coming up. Grant, we have a North Louisiana team, a Central Louisiana team, and a South Louisiana team. And they do a little bit of a round robin. So there'll be 3 games played for junior high, all running clock, and then I'll see what team is the best. So each team gets to play 2 games. And then obviously it'll be the senior game at 6 o'clock. So make sure you get your tickets. It's gridironfootballusa.com. It's going to be a lot of really good talent, a lot of talent you'll be seeing at the college level, and a lot of talent that just was actually just finished wrapping up in the Superdome. We had some players that committed to play in the Gridiron Football American Bowl game that just finished playing the state championship game. So a lot of really good talent, a lot of guys that, had great high school careers, and they have one last shot to really showcase their talents in front of college coaches. So make sure to support these young athletes, and make sure to get them out and support Memorial Stadium Monday, December 30th. And we hope to see y'all guys there.
Also, how many players are from out of state? I know you mentioned a bunch of states, but how many players right now do you have out of state?
Yeah, so it's about, we got probably about 15 kids out of state right now. And yeah, I mean, majority of your roster, especially when you pull in the game in state, it's just what it's going to be. It's going to be a majority of the players that are in Louisiana. But we are getting a lot of kids, especially Texas. We got a big group right now, and that's what we have right now. I think we have about 15, but that could actually grow by the time we had a couple more spots left. Not many. We probably have just a couple more spots left in the trenches on the O-line, D-line, and then maybe 3 or 4 at linebacker. But besides that, we're pretty full. So we're looking to really close the spot up. So if anybody that's watching that hasn't fully signed up and has got their offer, make sure to jump on it, because we might not have a spot for you. So we're running pretty low right now. So make sure to register and get your spot registered for the bowl game, because all the players come in on the 27th. They'll practice on the 28th and 29th, and the game will be on the 30th. So looking forward to a really fun week.
Yeah, Jace, that's so, if you're a player who maybe want to get some extra looks, also maybe play one more game of football, make sure to hit Jace up and Gridiron Football on Twitter in the DMs, or email Jace with his email. If you I think Jace, is your email already on Twitter or whatever?
It's not, but I can say it right now. It's my full name. It's first, middle, and last. It's Jace, Jace, Matthew, Matthew, Lejeune, Lejeune @gmail.com. So.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to leak your private information, but if you're more than willing, So make sure you hit up Jace if you want to play in the bowl game. But Jace, let's take a quick break.
Yeah,
and then we'll dive into this. See what happened during the state championship weekend.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, we're back, and we just kind of talked about some of the headlines from the Louisiana High School Athletic Association, as I said the full name, Prep Classic, that happened this past weekend. Of course, me and Jason are talking about that. We just come over the headlines. Now we're going to do a game-by-game breakdown of everything that happened. And first, to start off with the Thursday games. Why not? The first game of the Thursday slate was Washoe Christian versus Vermilion Catholic. Washoe Christian was the number 11 seed, while Vermilion Catholic undefeated. They were the number 1 seed. Vermilion by the way, also Washoe Christian, they're the 11th seed, but don't be don't be fooled. They were 12-2, well 12-1, well 13-1 going into the going to the state championship game. They were a lower seed because they didn't really have the strongest schedule. So it was a bit. Also, here's a rematch of the 2022 state championship game between Washoe Christian and Vermilion Catholic. Of course, OCS defeated VC 28-14 in that matchup that happened 2 years ago in the same building. But Jace, I mean, what a performance by Jon Jon Dartez. He broke the state championship record, regardless of classification. He broke the whole record. 47 carries for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also went 8 for 11 with 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. Although he did throw 2 picks, it doesn't matter. I mean, he was responsible for every single touchdown except for the last one, which was a pick 6 that BC had, and that's it. Also, I think a key to this game too was also Vermilion Catholic's defense. I know they allowed 322 passing yards with 2 touchdowns and an interception. Now they're able to get the interception, which was the pick 6. And Luke Virginie was awesome throughout the game. Yeah. The reason why Washoe Christian, threw for so much was because they couldn't get the run game going. They were a very balanced attack. Macon Leonard, going in this game, had over close to 1,600 yards. Their number 2 running back, Jude Turner, had over 600 yards of rushing and 400 yards of receiving. And they really couldn't get anything. They had to be one-dimensional. I think that was I think that may get lost in the sauce because of what Jon Jon Dartez did.
Yeah,
but I thought that was extremely important in that game.
Yeah, it was, and unfortunately, this was the game that I missed. But I listened to it on the radio. I listened to Crescent City's stream on the way over, and yeah, I mean, it was just one of those. You give a shout out to Crescent City, man. They did an awesome job. So yeah, I mean, just going back, yeah, Jonathan Dartez, man, 2 games. I mean, he's had 87 carries in a matter of 2 games, and that's including the semifinal game and the state championship game. And yeah, he just kind of wills his team and just carries them. He's your typical, just really good high school football player that every coach wants on their team. He's a leader. He's pretty much the heartbeat of this football team. So you expected to run through him. But yeah, I mean, Washoe Christian, they're a state championship program. They're not going to come down without a fight. And really, there are multiple times where Vermilion Catholic could have pulled away early, but Washoe Christian just kind of hung in there the entire football game, and just a margin of victory. That's very deceiving because Washoe Christian was driving, and Washoe Christian, I mean, listen to that game, Grant. I thought they might steal this one. There was a chance that they would steal this game at the end. And then the pick 6 happens and came at a desperate time for them. And, and you were thinking for a moment, it was like, is it going to happen? Is Jonathan Dartez, is another state championship going to be elusive for this Vermilion Catholic team? And for Jonathan Dartez, will he end his career losing to this team twice in the Dome? And the defense stepped up when it mattered most with the pick 6. Again, that separation. But Jonathan Dartez, I know Harlem Berry won Louisiana Gatorade Player of the Year. But yeah, it was to have this type of career, man. John, and Coach praised John Grant. He sent me like his whole season in a text message, and I said it's probably like 10 paragraphs long. He talked about the rushing yards, the total touchdowns. He had 67 total touchdowns and 4,689 yards. I know Harlem's a great player. He's the number 1 running back in the country. He is an awesome player. But, to me, just a better season, just being Louisiana Gridiron Player of the Year, I think it's Jonathan Dartez. You saw how much he means for this football team. There's no question what they're doing. They're telling you what they're going to do. They're going to run Jonathan Dartez. And, what impresses me most, you can look at all the stats. He beat Juwan Johnson's touchdown record, 2 Grant. But I think the one stat that impresses me the most, he hasn't fumbled the ball all year long. That is really impressive. Knowing that you're carrying the football all season long, almost 400 carries on the season, and to not fumble the ball one time, knowing that you're carrying the football every play, that is very impressive. Not to fumble it one time, and he's going to come down. He will go down as the greatest football player to ever play for Millen Catholic, and it's a great football team, great football program, and to have this type of career, have this type of year that he's had, I mean, I think he deserves it. And he's an awesome player, and it's all good. What Louisiana high school football is Jonathan Dartez.
Yeah, and of course, Jon Jon Dartez. I mean, I wrote a piece on him before the Prep Classic. I think it was on Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of discussing him breaking the record. Of course, he broke the total touchdowns record that was held by Juwan Johnson last season, and to not only, I mean, he's accomplished a lot, right? I mean, we discussed this on I think a previous broadcast. He's accomplished a lot. He's won a lot of games for him. I mean, he's led them to 2 state championship games, winning one, which was this season. But really, he would tell you just straight up that, like, if he didn't, if his teammates weren't doing the job, he wouldn't be able to be doing the things that like this run right here.
Yeah,
and that's just
Yep.
And that really puts his perspective, weight he's meant to this program. Not only is he a great player, but he's always going to give credit to his teammates, because he wouldn't be doing what he's doing right now if his teammates weren't blocking, if his teammates weren't catching the ball, because it's a team game, right, John? Yeah. When people mention Millen Catholic, we're going to mention Jon Jon Dartez, but in reality, is that it's a team game. Everyone has something to contribute, right? Yeah. And but Washoe Christian, and because we're talking a lot about Millen Catholic, and rightfully so, they won the game. Let's see, but also want to mention this Washoe Christian team. I mean, I know they're a team that usually goes far in the playoffs, usually go in the state championship game, but they lost a lot from last year. They won, I believe, they won 3 straight road games to get to this point. One was, and 2 of those games were against the number 3 and number 2 seed on the road. And for them to accomplish what they have, especially with losing all the players that they did, in a rebuild year for Washoe Christian, it's pretty incredible. And that is probably easily Coach Stephen Fitzhugh's best job, right? He's won a lot, and Stephen Fitzhugh's a guy who's won 6 state championships. Yeah, this is by far his best job as a coach, as the head coach at Washoe Christian. So I want to give a shout out to the team, but also Coach Fitzhugh for job well done this season, and they will be back in the dome for sure. I mean, they're Washoe Christian. They're Washoe Christian, for crying sakes. I mean,
yeah, they're used to this. Like they plan their trips every year. They expect to be there, and that's just one word: is culture. I mean, Stephen Fitzhugh's built a fantastic culture at Washoe Christian, and it comes to a point where it doesn't really matter who's really returning, because everybody grows up in that winning tradition, in that winning culture, and they just spread to each class. It just translates to each class, and he does a great job of building the culture and building this in the football team. Everybody believes, and when you grow up, because all these kids, you grow up, as a ball boy or as a hole in the water doing whatever, right? At Washoe Christian, watching these guys play in the dome, so you're around it so much that you're used to doing it yourself. So, and I think that culture spread, and Stephen Fitzhugh does an awesome job with his team, and he's the reason why he's one of the winningest coaches in the state right now in terms of wins and state championships. He's been doing it a long time. I mean, the field's named after him, for Christ's sake, and he's still coaching. So it shows you how much he's been winning over there. But yeah, and you saw the pick at the very end. But he's a great coach, and he's done a lot with some really good football teams, and I totally expect this team to be back in the dome next year.
Yeah, definitely. Did Alex you just dude? He needs to update his phone, man. It's shaky. He's shot on the potato, bro. He did a good job, but it's not his fault that this can't.
Yeah, I think he has Android, I believe.
Oh, that's why. Yeah, it explains a lot. But no, Alex did a great job all weekend writing and also posting all these videos up. And really, also remember, he wasn't even supposed to come for the second day. He was supposed to.
Yeah,
Daryl was supposed to come. I mean, he just came to like, all right, you need me? All right, I'll be on my way. So.
Yeah, huge shout out. Daryl was supposed to be there for the second day, but something came up. He wasn't feeling too well. Came up with a bug, and Alex had to step up and came the second day. And Alex did a great job. He does a great job, and I'm proud of him for stepping up.
Yeah, and also another player that's worth that's worth a shout out to is of course Luke McClain on the defensive side of the ball. 7 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, a sack, and a forced fumble. So that's another stat. I mean, he gets lost in the sauce because of what Jon Jon Dartez had done throughout the game, man. And he was awesome to see his final game at the Dome end up with a victory. Next on our list of games is South Plaquemine at Haynesville. And before all the stuff that happened on Saturday, I mean, this was by far, in my opinion, probably the biggest shocker of the weekend. I know we're gonna talk about such a Ruston that ended up being the biggest shocker, but to me, it was this game right here. Because for many different reasons. One, Haynesville went there the year before. Haynesville is a team that's won 17 state championships in the program's history. And, since they're used to playing in that type of environment under the Dome, a lot of people were wondering, they were easily the favorites, not only entering this game, but in the playoffs. But South Plaquemine has, gotten hot. They got, I think their loss against Newman, which was very close when Newman was healthy, really showed that, that this team is much better than a lot of people think. And also, I think that loss also gave it a huge confidence boost. Hey, we could beat with anybody. And that's what it did throughout the playoffs. To beat some fantastic teams throughout the playoffs. And then they went to the Dome for the first time since 2009 and defeated Haynesville 20-7 in the Division IV non-select state championship to win their first state title since 2008 and the third in program history. And also, I think this is also, remember, they also won before all the schools were combined after Katrina. So really, if you think about it, if you combine previous schools' history as well, they've won 4 state titles as a program because they combined schools to form South Plaquemine. But Jace, the one thing I was worried about was the line of scrimmage and the lack of size that South Plaquemine had. But I did say that South Plaquemine were going to win this game. It was going to be because of their speed, not only on the inside, but then also on the outside. And that showed in that game.
Yeah, it really did. Really, their speed. They don't have a lot of numbers, even for 1A. They're really 2A, but even for 1A, they don't really have any numbers. But the guys that they have, they're good. They got a lot of speed. They got some. They're not overly big, like you mentioned, Grant, but they got some length to them too. So they're just an athletic looking group. And they really proved gave Haynesville some problems just because of their speed and their athleticism, and that's really given Haynesville a tough time. Haynesville, they moved the ball, but they just couldn't really extend drives, and that was kind of the problem the whole game. And Jaheim Williams was obviously a problem.
Like it was without the playoffs.
He's been a dude for him, and it's great to see. And that's what's great about the Superdome, Grant. It allows guys that nobody really knows about to shine. And not a lot of people were talking about Jaheim Williams, but he came in and really put on a show. I believe he had all 3 touchdowns. He had the receiving touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, and then he also had an interception on defense. So he was phenomenal throughout this football game, and he showed what kind of football player he really is. And I got to admit, Grant, if there was one team that really, grew on me the whole playoffs, it was South Plaquemines. Be honest with you, it. I didn't take – South Plaquemines was probably my 3rd team I thought was going to actually make the Dome in that side of the bracket. I thought it was going to be a team that you knew, a team that we expected to go to the Dome just recent years, like Mangum or Logansport, and they beat both those 2 teams. And then you beat a lot of people thought was the heavy favorites, Haynesville, to win the state championship. So Yeah, that was a great performance from South Plaquemines. It was well deserved, and definitely eating my words here. I'm talking about especially a lot of the Gridiron Football Clan, and I know Annie got on me with this one, so I took my lumps with this one. But I'm not afraid to admit I'm wrong. I was wrong about this team, and South Plaquemines proved me wrong. Congratulations, a great football team. Wow, Fit, you saw how emotional Coach Fit was winning that state championship towards the end. And it kind of sunk in as a former player to bring that state championship back to that community is awesome. And South Plaquemines was a team that we forgotten about, but they were good before, with Coach Crutchfield, and to bring them back to this point, it's a big moment for this football program, and to do that against a team like Haynesville, that's a big moment for them to win a state championship, to bring that magic back. A lot of teams we won't talk about later on, we haven't talked about for a while in terms of being back in that big game, and South Plaquemines was. So huge credit, Coach Fit, and really the South Plaquemines team for the run that they're able to have. Defeat three really good football teams to get there. A lot of people thought, Haynesville's going to win the state championship. A lot of credit goes to the South Plaquemine football team for proving the doubters wrong, just going out there playing football and then showcasing why they are the state champions and a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and also just want to mention this too, Jace, is that South Plaquemine, and we're talking a good bit about their offense, but I think the big reason why they won is because of their defense.
Yeah.
They forced Haynesville to throw the ball.
Yep.
Isaiah Washington, they're not a throwing team. They forced Haynesville to throw the ball 20 times. Isaiah Washington, their quarterback, only completed 4 of those, and also threw an interception. Now he was able to throw a passing touchdown, but he also had an interception. So they forced Haynesville to play a game that they weren't necessarily familiar with, which is a huge shout out to the defensive staff at South Plaquemine for getting these boys ready to play against one of the greatest programs in the state's history, regardless of classification. And another thing too, I also want to mention too, is Lyle Fit. So Lyle Fit was not only I think it's feet actually. I think it's Lyle
Feet. Yeah.
Feet. But Coach Feet, remember, he was the star running back for South Plaquemine when they won back-to-back 07-08, first for 1,000 yards each season, and then eventually he went to Tech. He played at Tech. Yeah. So it's a huge homecoming victory for him as a coach. Because especially considering the fact that South Plaquemine hasn't really been the same since Crutch left, and of course, in this type of community, it's harder to win for a long term, especially if you whiff on a couple of coaches like at school like Franklin, who we're going to talk about eventually as well. So huge win for the South Plaquemine Hurricanes, the school, the community over there in Plaquemines Parish, and Coach Lyle Feet for a job well done. Look at those guys celebrate. The crowd really the crowd really came out and supported them. That was awesome to see. They brought a pretty big crowd, especially for a smaller school like that. So, shout out the Hurricanes of South Plaquemine, and shout out everybody over there and Plaquemine Parish.
Hurricanes also prevailed over the tornadoes, battle the natural disasters. So,
yeah. Also want to mention too, all those highlights up on Gridiron Football. So make sure to check out Gridiron Football on YouTube for all the highlights. It also makes my job easier. That way, you guys get some visuals for all the games that we're talking about. So it's a great way to promote your content on my content, I guess.
There you go.
So that way it's a win-win. Also, my highlights will be coming out tomorrow. I was only able to get 2 games because I was up at the booth pretty much all day for the first 2 days, handling radio stuff and also releasing a whole bunch of articles that came out last weekend. So I was only able to get 2 games. Those 2 games will be up tomorrow, which Karr and Ash and Central and Ruston. Unfortunately, those are the 2 games that ended up being duds. But it doesn't matter as they become highlights. So they're going to be uploaded on the YouTube channel pretty soon here. But Jace, next game we're going to have to talk about is another big game. And it was really the only game that North Louisiana was able to win. Which was Sterlington defeating St. James in a 35-28 shootout. It was a great game. 2 contrasting styles, and you really got to see that in full display. Of course, Sterlington. So let's go over the stats, Jace. And that was, Sterlington had 341 yards of rushing compared to St. James' 141. And then in St. James, of course, Sterlington is a run-first team. I mean, they run the ball way more than a lot of teams around the same. Matter of fact, entering the game, they had rushed for over 4,000 yards as a team. But St. James was highly effective throwing the ball early on, especially with Juwan Jackson. Juwan Jackson ended up finishing with 179 yards, completing 12 of his 20 passes for a touchdown and an interception. Connie Kenyon did a great game, 24 carries for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Kamen Mitchell was also a freshman as well. Juwan Jackson and Kamen Mitchell are freshmen. Kamen Mitchell had 2 catches for 70 yards and the only receiving touchdown for the game. Hagan Herring, 15 carries for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. Gavin Evans, 9 carries for 77 yards. David Hickman, who's their backup quarterback, who uses a lot of Wildcat, 10 carries for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. And TJ Birch, 9 carries for 46 yards. Jace, to kind of break this down a little bit, I mean, it was truly a back and forth game.
Yeah.
It really was. It came down to the final whistle. And the one thing that we did say was that even though Sterlington did lose quite a bit from last year, they were an older team than St. James because a lot of those guys were juniors and seniors playing, including the 2 running backs who were awesome throughout the game. But St. James was playing a lot of underclassmen. A lot of sophomores were starting for them. And then also their quarterback and their top receiver that game were both freshmen. I mean, so the future is bright for both squads. But Jace, talk about this game and just how excited we should be for the future because both the teams could easily be back in the same building next year.
Oh yeah, I mean, you expect them really to be the favorites to go back next year, but it's hard to get here no matter what. I mean, we thought Calvary Baptist, we thought they were set to go to the state championship again next year, and actually talk about it, I don't think we've actually had a repeat champion this year. I mean, everybody was a new champion this year, and it's hard to do it. But this Sterlington St. James game, this first half, I don't think we were going to get a stop. I mean, both teams were doing whatever they wanted, and it showcases like we broke this game a lot, Grant, and both teams were doing what they wanted to do. Well, we thought the key to the game was what offense was going to dictate their game. The problem was both offenses did in the first half. St. James was moving the ball pretty quickly up and down the field, and Sterlington was just gashing St. James in the ground game. So it was just back and forth. We didn't have a punt in the first half. It was all touchdowns in the first half. But a lot of credit goes to Sterlington's coaching staff. Coach Doty, I mean, this whole coaching staff for Sterlington, because only, I believe the first half, it was, 28-21?
Yeah.
With that, yeah.
It was 28-21, yeah.
Yeah, 28-21. So St. James only scored one time in the second half. They scored on all 3 possessions in the first half, all 3 touchdowns. And in the second half, you got to get credit to Sterlington's defense. They made a lot of adjustments in the second half. Only held St. James to 1 touchdown. They forced a turnover on downs, and obviously the interception by Trey Birch at the very end of the football game. And I thought it was a pick 6. I mean, I thought the penalty flag was kind of ticky tacky there, but still that was a pick to win the football game at the end. But Sterlington, yeah, I give them a lot of credit, man. I mean, their defense was much better in the second half. It was going to come down to that because both defenses didn't really have an answer. Really, St. James defense had a good game too because you think about it, it was a tale of 2 halves. The first half was nothing but the offense. The second half was nothing but the defense, and it was Sterlington's defense that was able to get the job done. Sterlington's offense, like you mentioned, they have really good weapons running the football. 341 yards, 5 touchdowns. Hagan Herring, we won a Gridiron Football Player of the Week a couple weeks ago. He won the MVP in the state championship game, 15 carries, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. David Hickman, like you mentioned, the backup quarterback for the Panthers, he scored the game-winning touchdown, ran for 62 yards and 2 scores. And, TJ Birch, who's actually a nominee for Gridiron Football Player of the Week as well. 9 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, Sterlington did a great job of making adjustments and slowing down the St. James offense. But, man, Juwan Jackson, he is going to be fun to watch. He is only a 9th grader. For him to play like that in the Superdome, he was really impressive. And I saw North Dakota's Luke Delafield as a freshman playing the state championship, and I thought he was. I thought his performance was more impressive. Juwan's. He did a great job. I mean, you look at the numbers as well: 12 for 20, 179 yards, a touchdown, 12 carries, 123 yards, 2 more touchdowns. You mentioned all the weapons that he has around him: Ja'Kai Villanueva, Connie King Young. They got, and all those guys are coming back. I think everybody on this offense is coming back next year for St. James. I don't think they had any seniors on their starting lineup. I could be wrong, but I think they're all underclassmen. So they're going to be coming back, and for this young team to do that and have this type of run, they're really dangerous, Grant, because they don't know what pressure is because they're too young to really know what pressure is. So they just go out and play. And this team is going to be really good. I think this team is starting to figure out, trying to reach their ceiling. But, I mean, it's through the roof. This St. James team is going to be back. It's tough for Coach Davis, I know, to lose back-to-back state championship games like that in close fashion. I mean, you lose on a 2-point conversion. You lose by a touchdown here. That's a tough way to lose a football game. But this team will be back, and would not be shocked that we see both these two teams again just because of how young they are and just their programs. I mean, both coaches do an awesome job with their programs as well.
Jordan Taylor, great weekend, bros. Hell yeah, dude. Great weekend.
Yeah, awesome weekend, Jordan. Good seeing you, buddy.
Yes, sir. And also, that was his first year as a credentialed media member.
Yeah.
And that was huge for him and the Under the Lights brand. Just make sure to check out Under the Lights.
Yeah.
They stream the shows on Twitter and Facebook. I believe they don't have a YouTube. They need to get YouTube, man. They need to get YouTube as well, bro. They'll get subscribers fast.
Oh yeah,
they've done a great job all year, Brock. Not only shooting their preview and recap shows like we do, but they also broadcast their games as well. So shout out to the boys at Under the Lights, especially Jordan Taylor, who's done a fantastic job of running that thing. I know that could be a stressful thing, not only doing getting the shows together, but also broadcasting the games. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys have, if Gridiron Football's ever broadcast the game with all the stuff that they have. It's difficult. It's really difficult. And that's something that there's a lot that goes into it.
Me and Andy had to do a broadcast for the Gridiron Football Bowl game a couple of years ago in Alabama. So we know, and that wasn't an A+ production. I can tell you that, but we found a way to get it done. It is tough. It is tough to do that. And man, your own production.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out them. But yeah, also I think another key for this game, Jace, was the defense in the second half for Sterlington. I mean, St. James only scored 7 points throughout the second half. They couldn't do anything offensively the rest of the way. I mean, but also I want to so that's a huge shout out to their defense for job well done. I mean, that was the key for that victory. But also I want to mention this too. Nolan Zenon, who's the linebacker for St. James,
all over the field,
20 through 23 tackles and a forced fumble, and he will be back next year. Most of the guys that you can name on the roster will be back next year.
Yeah.
Like they're an insanely young team, so that's scary what they've accomplished this year. I can only imagine what they're going to be like with a year under. Try some of the whole Karr. Karr was kind of a fairly young team last year.
Yeah.
And so we all knew, like, once they got a year of experience under their belts, they were going to be scary the next year. And that's exactly what happened. So I can only imagine what St. James will look like next year as they get more seasoned, Jace.
Oh, yeah.
Jace, moving on to the Friday slate, and the opening game for that was Edie White and Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
Archbishop Shaw, as we call him in New Orleans, and we skipped this ad because nobody likes ads. Anyway, Jace, I mean, just I think this game will as everything we expected it to be. Physical game, a lot of emotions for both sides. We know EDY was going to bring in a crowd. Seems like the whole city of Thibodeau was there. Shaw had a lot of people, and really Shaw didn't have a whole lot. But really, the only reason why I didn't think they if that game was played at night, Shaw would have a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, there's people that flew in from all the country to go to that game. By the way, Jace, they had brought a good crowd, but I think if that game was played on a Friday night or a Saturday, they would have had a lot more people there for Shaw, from Shaw's side. But this is everything we expected to be. High intensity, a lot of physicality. Both teams like to run the ball. We knew there's going to be a lot of drama. EDY this is the last time they played the state championship game was in 2021, but that wasn't at the Dome. No. That was at Cajun Field in Lafayette. And actually, Jace, you know what? Interesting fact: EDY, they were one of the first participants in the Prep Classic because the Prep Classic didn't start until 1981. They played against Curtis, which they lost to. But this is the first one. This is the first Prep Classic 1981. Shaw, this is the first Prep Classic since 2008 when they went on three straight state championships, but they lost all three. Matter of fact, JB, Jared Boyd, who the host of the Hash It Out show, he went to Shaw, and his little brother Chad was on all three of those teams. So there's a lot, and Shaw hadn't won a state championship since 1987, and they lost their next 5 appearances. So there's a lot of heartbreak for Shaw, especially all the teams that they had. And they were finally able to pull it out with a 28-25 victory. It was a back and forth game for the most part. Let me pull. Here it is, right here. It was a back and forth game for the most part. Grand Barber got the game going with a 1-yard touchdown run to take the lead 7-0. Mason Wilson was a little bit shaky throughout the game, throughout the first quarter, but he was finally able to get comfortable in the second quarter, scoring on a 21-yard touchdown run to tie the game up. Then Carter Douglas for EDY helped regain the lead with EDY 14-7. EDY did a great job of not only running the football but also throwing it as well, which shows you Grant Barber is one of the more underrated talents in South Louisiana, really across the state. So it looked like EDY got a little more comfortable. That was with under 4 minutes to go in the game. However, Shaw was able to tie at the end of the first half. When Jacob Washington was able to get open through some great play design by Shaw, and he nearly dropped it.
You're about to see it coming up.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably about to see it. Hold on. I think it was it was like a few minutes before. You're probably about to see it, but he was wide open. Wide open. All he had to do was catch the ball, and he saw it. He caught it, and bobbled it, and then caught it. That was a Mason Wilson touchdown. It's probably come up eventually. Yeah. But anyway, we got to move on. EDY would take the lead in the second half with a 27-yard field goal in the fourth quarter after a scoreless third quarter. However, Jasper Parker finally broke free for a 62-yard touchdown run to give Shaw his first lead of the game. And then a fumble on EDY's ensuing possession would have give Shaw the ball back with great field position, and they converted that with a 10-yard touchdown pass from Mason Wilson to Jacob Washington. And, of course, EDY was able to score on a 4-yard run by Jonathan Lee with 3:53 left to go in the game. But that wasn't enough as Archbishop Shaw actually is about to come up right here.
That's it.
Bro, there was a lot of gas when the hell that was happening. Oh, my God. Because if you drop that, all the Shaw fans were like, "Oh my God, here we go again."
So deflating. Because
go ahead.
Because before that point, everything was going EDY White's way.
Yeah,
EDY White was the way that EDY White wanted this game. It was happening. The game was falling in their hands how they wanted this game to be played, and that if they would have missed that touchdown at the end, I'm not sure if Shaw overcomes it, because at that point it's like a mentality thing. It's just not our day. It's not you drop a touchdown, things aren't going great for you. It's hard to rebound from that, especially in a big stage. So that was a huge point in this football game. Not only just to tie the game, and it was a 3-point game, but just for Shaw's psyche, because of them, like you mentioned, all the great Shaw football teams, Grant, only one state championship team. I was shocked when I did my research on that and found they only won one state championship with all the great players and great teams they've had go through the program. But I mean, and you're thinking to yourself, if you're a Shaw fan, oh no, not again. But to have that touchdown was like a sigh of relief. So we're good. We're tied. We're gonna be just fine. We'll make our adjustments and we'll find a way to win. That was a huge play in that game.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also, this game was pretty evenly matched. I mean, if you look at the total yardage, Shaw outgained Edie White 365 to 337. There wasn't much difference there. Shaw had more rushing yards, 254 yards compared to 204 yards. Edie White actually had more passing yards, 133 compared to Shaw's 111. There it is right there. I mean, that was the Jacob Washington touchdown, and then that play to me were just like, I mean, just the game-changing plays for that game. And really, that's when I knew Shaw and that fumble, and then they scored. I was like, oh, this game is turning on its head. And like Shaw fans are getting into it. The team just it seemed to have they gained a lot of confidence in the second half, and they want to get the job done, and which they did. Congratulations to the Archbishop Shaw Eagles. Also want to go over some stats too. The final stats: Jasper Parker, 19 carries for 174 yards and a touchdown. Mason Wilson, 10 for 19 for 111 yards and a touchdown. Mason Wilson also had 88 yards on 16 carries and a touchdown. And Jacob Washington, 8 catches for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was named the game's MVP. Grant Barbara, 12 for 17 for 133 yards. And he also had 40 yards and a touchdown. And so those are some stats right there as well. So it was a evenly matched game for the most part. It's everything we expected. Some people were talking about, well, I think Shaw's going to kill you. I say, nah, this game's going to be they're the same type of team. Yep. They both run the option. And out different formations. Of course, Shaw runs the option out of the spread, but they're both option teams that like to run the ball. Matter of fact, Hank Tierney joked that the game was going to last 45 minutes. So that's a certain team. I mean, they're both very similar. Matter of fact, Andy joked, he's like, Grant, I was an option. So the quarterback gets it and the running back gets it. It's like, yeah, that's the option. Your quarterback keeps it, or you can hand out to the running back. That's your option. That's an option.
Yeah, you get out and do whatever. But yeah, like Shaw, it's just like a long time coming. I think JB, he was like, man, it was like a grill went off his shoulders. It's just like, finally, thank God. But yeah, I mean, you can see the emotion. I love it for Coach Tierney as well, to go back to this program and lead him to a state championship in his second tenure with the school. You see him getting the state championship trophy, and man, like this community's been waiting for a long time. A lot of heartbreak. They've had a lot of teams that could win the state championship, and for a long time, he thought Edie White was going to do it. It's like, is this going to happen again to Archbishop Shaw? But for them to find a way to win that football game, as a sign of relief in this Shaw team, it's just a matter of a couple of seasons for Hank Tierney to return back. They're atop of the state champions, and the Michigan guys came through at the end. Really 17-14, Edie White was winning the football game, but a matter of just a couple of plays. You had the Jasper Parker touchdown run, the fumble in the first play on the next drive for Edie White, and then another touchdown catch by Jacob Washington. That pretty much sealed the deal. You need your best players to step up in big time situations. And Jasper Parker, you got to give credit to Edie White's defense, Grant. They did a great job of really bottling Jasper for most of the game. But like when I call the Letcher Edie White game, they did a great job of bottling Trent Cheney. And then boom, one long run, 99 yards for a touchdown, sealed the deal. It was only a matter of time before Jasper Parker broke one. He did. And then Jacob Washington really stepped up as well at the receiver position. And Mason Wilson, a lot of credit to Mason as well, because it wasn't pretty. I mean, he got hit. I tell you, Edie White's defense was hitting hard, and they were flying all over the football. But, it didn't rattle him, and he kept on playing his game. And and he made a difference as well. Shaw's defense, like you mentioned, you've been high on them all year long, and they've really stepped up and made some big plays. Another big play was the blocked field goal. Now that happened early, and that led to the Mason Wilson touchdown run. It could have been 10-0 E.D. White, but get that blocked field goal, and they got a really good kicker at E.D. White too. So to block that field goal, that was a big change of momentum, because everything was going right for E.D. White at that point, and from the tie of the game, 14-14. And, that was a big moment for them as well. But big win for Archbishop Shaw, and, it was a long time coming for Eagles fans.
Yeah, I mean, of course. And also, you mentioned the second stint. Jason, I've mentioned this on the show before, but the reason why it's the second stint and not his overall first stint, actually, matter of fact, if he was just had one stint of Shaw, he'd be retired by now, right? Yeah, the reason why this is a second stint is because the first stint, Shaw got in a little bit of trouble with the LHSAA, and what Shaw did, they fired Hank and really made him kind of the scapegoat. And because it was later proven that he had no run doing in the whole situation. Yeah. So, I mean, it was really the school. I mean, the administration at the time was forced to hang out. Now, they still had success after he left. I mean, like I said, they went to three straight state title games from 2006 through 2008. But then after that stretch, when you get to the beginning of the 2010s, Shaw's enrollment went down, the football program started going down with it. I mean, Shaw was in dire needs, and they got some new leadership in the last 4 to 5 years, and and so they were finally getting the enrollment back up, the academics going up, and so what they did was, the football Irish, they had an open position for the head coaching job, and Hank had just retired. I mean, he just retired as the head coach at Ponchatoula after leading them to their first state title game since, before America entered World War II. That's how long ago it was. And I think his name is Steve Ryan, the head minister for Archbishop Shaw. But he asked him, "Hey, we have a job opening. Would you be willing to take it?" And sure enough, he took it. I mean, that's he still look, because Hank, as much as bad blood, Stephen Ryan, as much bad blood as there was for in terms of how Hank left. I mean, it's considered how he left. He still loved Shaw. I mean, his wife Joanne still loved Shaw.
Yeah,
because they're both and the fact that they would come back and do this in the second set. And remember, Hank is 72, 73 years old. He's getting up there, man.
Yeah, he's
rejuvenated.
Yeah,
you wouldn't think that, because he's just rejuvenated, being back at Shaw, and he's shown that with the celebration. I mean, he was smiling the whole entire day, before the game, during the game, and after the game.
He was.
So it's great. It's great to see him back in the dome and finally get that state championship win since his first one in 1987. So congratulations, Coach Hank. And also thank you, Coach Hank, for the whole season allowing me to cover your team, because he's always been gracious helping me in terms of my coverage. Not only my coverage, because I love covering Shaw. I love going to West Bank and cover Shaw. I'm not gonna lie, because they always they always give me whatever I need whenever I go over there to cover whatever I need to cover, a player, the team, a game in general. They've always done a great job of helping me and doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
And also just Hank. Also, I've also known Hank for a very long time. My dad was a star quarterback at Brother Martin, and he always reminds him, "Hey, what was the one team you never beat in the Catholic League?"
Yeah.
So shout out to Coach Hank, and also Coach Adam Giglio. Adam Giglio was Stevens coordinator, Brother Martin, coach both of my little brothers, and congratulations for him finally getting his first state title win as Stevens coordinator, and he will be. I think that's a future head coach right there. So if you remember the name Adam Giglio, by the way, just to let you know, because he's a great coach, by the way, and look what he did with that defense. But anyway, moving on to the next game, Jace. This is the second game, and this was very exciting as well. We expected this to be a close game. Catholic New Iberia and Dunham. Catholic New Iberia came in as the number 7 seed. Although they were one of the hot, they were much better than what they're giving their seed. They're a 9-1 team. Their only loss was against Vermilion Catholic, who we just talked about as the Division 4 select state champion. That was their only loss, 14-10. But since then they had won 12 straight games since then. Then they also had back-to-back upsets of Newman, which they shut out 31-0, and then traveled on the road again. This time to Shreveport to knock out the defending state champions, Calvary Baptist. And that Calvary Baptist team may have been the most talented team they probably ever fielded on a football team. And they beat them in the game walk-up game-winning field goal. And in this game, oh boy, they were rolling. Rolling. Dunham got off to a 14-3 lead early in the game. And it looked like, Dunham was in full control of this one. And it looked like it was going to be the first stud of the weekend.
Yeah.
However, Catholic New Iberia came back and scored 31 unanswered points.
Yeah.
Luke Landry is a huge part of that. Luke Landry was doing all kinds of crazy things, getting out, running out, getting away from sacks, extending the play. He was awesome throughout the whole entire night. That's why they're able to get also Hayden Lesser, that great point. Also mentioned the number 1 seed, the number 2 seed, and the number 3 seed back to back.
Yeah, that was very impressive, and Hayden does a great job of putting up the stats and everything, and he does an awesome job with that. Anytime I said at the beginning, I cover this bracket a lot because that's a Episcopal's bracket, so I've been used to this, and every year I say this, Grant, on the broadcast. But anybody that comes out as a state champion in this bracket, now you could say it's watered down now. You got so many state championship games now, Grant, but really whoever wins this bracket each and every year deserves to be a state champion. Just the amount of teams that you have to beat in order to get to the dome.
Yes.
It's insane. It's a battle each and every week. And Catholic New Iberia was able to do that, beat the number 1, number 2, and number 3 seeds. Yeah, that's deserving of a state champion and championship, and they definitely deserve it. And that was a fun one. A lot of roller coasters, like you mentioned. Dunham. I thought Dunham was like okay, like they go up 14-0, and I was like okay. This is maybe what we kind of expected, but it was like, there has to be some reason why Catholic New Iberia was able to beat the last 2 teams, and then you saw it. It was a matter of runs. First quarter, it was Dunham. Then the second and third quarter was totally dominated by Catholic New Iberia, 31 unanswered points, which actually ended up being the difference in this game. And then this game had everything that you need. To me, we had some great games. I think this was it's tough because that next game we're going to talk about is going to be really good too. But this may have been my favorite game. You had a lot going on here. Offensively, with both these 2 quarterbacks, Elijah Haven, you saw why he's the number 1 quarterback in the country for 2027. And Luke Landry, he doesn't give his flowers, man, but he is a baller. And it's great to have some southpaws out there doing their thing, and he does. And he extended some plays. Both quarterbacks. There were times I thought Haven was going to go down. There were times Landry I thought he was going to go down, but they somehow made plays happen, and they have a really good athletes and a really good supporting cast around them. And it showed to be a great game. And, both Landry and Haven were unbelievable in this football game. But you're going to talk about, I'm going to hand it back to you, Grant. But it was the defense, and it was the defensive plays, a couple defensive plays that made the difference in this game.
Yeah, and also, it's a great point, Jace. And, Catholic New Iberia, that was one of them right there. He was about to get sacked, and he flipped it right to the running back, Luke Morris. Yeah, and he had a great game as well. 70 yards of rushing, 60 yards of receiving. So it's a great game overall for him. But Dunham, speaking of Elijah Haven, this game really showed the whole state because a lot of people hear about Elijah Haven around the state just because of his accomplishments. He's done one over a prospect for his class nationally, not just the state, nationally, not even at his position, just overall.
Right.
And we've heard a lot of great things about him. And this game really was the first time that a lot of people across the state were able to see him play live because of television. The games were broadcasted on the LHSAA network. And, when you had cable, they're on Channel 4 on YouView, right? And then, of course, we have the LHSAA network on if you have a Roku TV, whatever, you have that. But I think they need to expand it more to have all their live broadcasts on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
Just because they can make a little more money. Because I believe they have over 1,000 subscribers now, so they could probably make money off the live broadcasts and everything like that. But yeah, I wish the games were also broadcast on YouTube. But however, I'm speaking of this game. Elijah Haven went off. I mean, he was responsible. I mean, he ran for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns. The rest of the team had 5.
Yeah.
Elijah Haven also, but speaking of his passing yard, his passing stats, 25 for 37 for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had an interception, but we're going to get to that in a second. But and we already talked about the controversial ruling at the end of the first half. But Jace also, Trevor Hayman, 11 catches for 122 yards and 1 touchdown. Jarvis Washington, 10 catches for 151 yards and a touchdown. But also, there was one thing that was glaring to Jace that during that 31-14, during that 31 point, to stretch that Kathy Norbury had to take a 31-14 lead in the third quarter. One thing that was glaring, and I was kind of concerned about Dunham going to the playoffs.
Yeah,
was how much they would miss J.J. Harris.
Yeah.
Because Colin Pickett's a good back. He's had some great games throughout the season, but a guy like J.J. Harris would have helped balance out the rush attack more. Mm-hmm. And as great as Elijah Haven is, you can't necessarily rely on him for every single run play. Like if you had J.J. Harris and Colin Piku in the same backfield, I think it would have helped and also would have diversified the run game a little bit more instead of relying on Elijah. And that that showed. And eventually they were able to come back as Elijah Haven's that type of player where every time you have a guy like him, you always have a chance to win no matter how much you're down by. That was shown in the quarterfinals when they're down 30-14 against LCA. So we knew, even though Dunham was down 31-14, there was still a shot that they could pull off a huge comeback, and which they did. So going down the field, so Kathy Norbury was up 31-14. A lot of that had to do with, of course, Luke Landry, his passing and extending plays. So they were able to take a 31-14 lead. But then in the fourth quarter, Dunham was able to score his first touchdown since what was it?
The first quarter.
The first quarter, 3:21 left in the first quarter. And then Elijah Haven scored a 1-yard touchdown run. And then Elijah Haven 5 minutes later in the fourth quarter would find Trevor Hayman for a 42-yard touchdown pass. But this one, it got crazy. Kathy Norbury got the ball back, but it was blocked. It got blocked. Josh Lazard was able to return it all the way to Kathy Norbury's 8-yard line, and it looked like they're about to steal the victory once again. And then Elijah Haven had a short, a 3-yard run, a 2-yard run, and then an incomplete pass. It was 4th down, and they're in great field goal range. So you're thinking, okay, it's done kicking a field goal to send this overtime, which I think was, usually would be the logical choice. But when you have a player like Elijah Haven, that was a Hail Mary, controversial Hail Mary. And we can't slow it down or anything like that, but that was it right there. I mean, it was pretty controversial. Everyone's talking about it. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, when you have a special player like Elijah Haven, you have the athletes on the outside that you do, Dunham head coach Neil Weiner had a hard, tough choice to make. And, field goal would have been the easy choice, but he decided to go for the win, which was the harder choice. And it did a rollout. Elijah Haven rolled out, and and he found Jarvis Landry. It was open for a second, and then I'm pulling it up right now. And then Kathy Norbury's sophomore DB, Karan Eugene, who, by the way, leads the team in interceptions going into that game with 7, picked up his 8th and final interception of the season, picking off Elijah, came up with a huge clutch play, picking off Elijah Haven to seal the deal for Catholic New Iberia. I'm going to show you this last play this crazy sequence right here. for right here. Oh, nope, a little bit later. There's right there. It gets blocked. They return it all the way to the 8-yard line. And then that was the incomplete pass. And this is where there's the short run he had. And then that's when they led the decision to throw the ball. And of course, Elijah Haven would throw the game. Come on, Eugene. Toronto Eugene would pick off Elijah Haven for the game-winning touchdown pass. And the Kathy Nobeer crowd goes delirious. Congratulations to Coach DeSormo for winning his first state championship as a coach. He's a Catholic New Iberia alum. And then also his brother is the brother of UL head coach. What is it? Wait, is Matt DeSormo the Catholic New Iberia head coach, or is it what's the?
So Matt is Matt's the Catholic New Iberia coach.
Okay. What's the other no? Okay, was it Mike?
Yeah, Michael. Yeah.
The Mike. Okay, yeah, there you go. So yeah, also Hayden brought get your chips out now before Haven takes over. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because Jason Harris is coming back next year too. So yeah,
that's a good point. And and I'm gonna go back to that 2-point decision from Coach Neil Weiner. I agree with it. I totally do agree with it.
You mean the game went to going for the touchdown?
Yeah. They get the decision, go for the game winner. And instead of the field goal, I'll go back to that decision. I totally agree with it, Grant. I mean, everybody's saying that you have the best quarterback in the country. You ride with him. I mean, you believe in your guy. You go for the win. And just how the game was going, Catholic New Iberia outplayed you. So, at this position of the game, I think you go for it as well. And Dunham, their field goal, they don't really, kick too many field goals this year. They just don't have that consistent guy. So that may have been blocked, or that might have been that might not work. So I actually agree with Coach Warner's decision in that moment to go for the win, just because that I felt like Catholic New Iberia outplayed you the entire game, and so this was a chance for you to go and steal it from them. So I do agree with the call for them to go for the win. But
Congratulations to Catholic New Iberia, Coach Sormo as well, winning a state championship and going and just
in that road to get there, right? To beat the top 3 seeds to do it. Now a lot of people were talking about this Catholic New Iberia team as far as being a favorite to win the state championship. But we talked about when Ball in the Boot, Grant. We knew that there were about 7-8 teams that could go on a run and win it, and they were certainly one of those teams. It just shows you how deep that bracket is, and that any of those teams can win it, because those are all really good football teams, man. And Catholic New Iberia definitely deserved it. And congratulations to the Panthers, because they were a team that we haven't really talked about as much as the Dunhams and the Calvarys and the Newmans of the world. But they went out there and beat them all, and they won their way to a championship.
Definitely, Jace, definitely. And but also just what a great show by both teams done for being resilient. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer for that Jace. I mean, you have, if you really think hard about it, I mean, there aren't that was a tough decision to make. I mean, it really was, and there was not a right or a wrong thing to do. I mean, of course, the safe pick is to go for the field goal, but there's a logical reason to go for the touchdown.
Right.
With that short yardage as well. Right. I mean, it wasn't like it was like from the 25-yard line, you went for the touchdown instead of the field goal. It was it was at like the 4 or 5 yard line. So I understood this decision. But it was a tough way to go out, and I think Dunham could be back. So Dunham could easily be back next year, but it is extremely, extremely tough to win a state championship in the state of Louisiana, Jace. But Jace,
JJ Harris back healthy. You get Elijah Haven coming back, Jarvis Washington coming back. There's a good chance it could be there again. And anytime you got a quarterback like Elijah Haven, you got 2 more chances with him. So you definitely have a really good shot.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, Jace. But before
Grant, you're on mute.
no, I plugged. I had to take out my microphone to charge my computer. But the next game we're going to talk about is Franklinton and Cecilia. This is a game that it was. I said this, at the beginning of the weekend. I said this had an opportunity to be the most exciting game of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people said the best game was going to be Alexandra Karr, and for the right reasons. Of course, we all know what happened, after that. But I mean, to me, this was going to be the most exciting game of the weekend. I said that at the best. I said the most exciting, and it turned out to be.
Yeah.
And let's kind of go over what happened. So, Franklin was able to score on the field at 75 yards on 7 plays. That was finished off by a 6-yard run by Cy Austin, a guy who rushed broke the 2,000-yard mark in this game. And then they kicked the ball, and they kicked it to Braylon Calais, who's got a few Division I offers, Power 4 offers as a sophomore, and he was able to run it 88 yards back for a touchdown. You're actually about to see it right here. After all the celebration, they kicked the ball off, and they gave it right. Yep. Oh, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they kicked at him, and so it's tied 7-7. Then Cecilia makes a stop. They get the ball back on just 3 plays after a long run by Diesel Solari. And Solari would end up pushing it in himself on a 6-yard carry to take a 14-7 lead for Cecilia. It only took 84 yards. It only took them 3 plays to get down there and score a touchdown, Jace. I mean, that's what we expected from the Cecilia offense. But however, Franklinton was go down the field once again. They're able to get good field position, and they were able to score on a 5-yard run by Jacob Crane, and then begin the second quarter. Diesel Solari was able to score on a 1-yard touchdown run to retake the lead, 22-15. However, Cy Austin would score once again, but on a 13-yard run. And there was a miscommunication. There was what's it called? It's not a fake field goal. It doesn't matter. I don't know. It's called like Oski or something like that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, they 2-point conversion fails. However, So then Cecilia will score again on a 1-yard touchdown run by Braylon Calais, and then Gabe Ezel will kick the 36-yard field goal to make it 29-24. However, the game slowed down after that, and that's because Franklinton ran they went slow. They went slow. That's what we kind of expected them to do eventually. They went slow. They forced Cecilia to play a game that they're not used to playing. And when that happened, Cecilia, the offense slowed down. They can't really do anything, and they were forced. They're forced to play Franklinton's game rather than Franklinton play theirs, like the first half. And eventually, Franklinton will get the lead on a 14-yard touchdown run by Cy Austin at the very, very beginning of the fourth quarter to finish off a 9-play, 50-yard touchdown drive. However, with one after both teams really couldn't do anything until 1:17 left to go in the game when Diesel Solari found Ellis Stewart for a 39-yard touchdown pass where the defensive back for Franklinton wasn't able to make the play, bobbled up in the air, and Ellis Stewart had to be in the right place at the right time to make the catch, which would end up being the game-winning touchdown pass. We already mentioned the controversy earlier. And the reason why it's controversial is because Franklinton was driving up the field. They were like driving. And this is a position they've been in the past. I mean, they're very comfortable being in those 2-minute situations. And they're driving up the field. Jake Crane looked great throughout the game, including that last drive. However, Cecilia was able to strip sack Jake Crane. It looked like I don't think he fumbled it. I mean, the replay showed he didn't fumble it, but the refs disagreed, and they ruled that Cecilia recovered the ball. They overturned the call. Because originally was not fumble. It was originally down. They overturned the call, and then Cecilia got the ball back, and that was the game. And that was arguably the best game of the weekend. I was right because the next two games we're going to talk about were duds. But Jace, take it away and what happened in your eyes
Yeah.
happened in this game.
Well, I said a lot on your show, and I know you said, I know I talked about on my show as well, that expect a lot of trickery in this football game. Expect a lot of unconventional plays being in this football game, and you saw it because both these two teams like to pull up, everything to rabbit out the hat, in terms of trying to trick a team, trick an opponent. We've seen Cecilia and Franklinton do it with 2-point conversion plays. You saw some surprise onside kicks. You've seen a little bit of everything, and you've seen both teams pull up all the stops. But it was a tale of two halves. And the first half, it was going perfectly what Cecilia wanted the game to be: up tempo, back and forth, high pace offense, and that's how they've been playing all season long when they've been on this dominant playoff run. When with the Diesel Solari show, and you get all these different weapons that can do a lot of different things. But the second half, to your point, Grant, it was Franklinton's half. They did a great, and there's a reason why Nick Salter from Maggio is a Hall of Fame coach. He's one of the best coaches out there. They made a lot of adjustments in the second half. They slowed the game down, and they did a great job of rallying Diesel Solari. Try to force him throwing the football. And if you're going to do one thing, you gotta force him to throw the football because he's so dynamic as a runner. And they got so many different athletes. But they did a great job of having that game plan. It was a much more no scoring in the third quarter, which was shocking considering how both these offenses can move the ball and can score. But fourth quarter comes along. Ellis Stewart, I just said.
That was another controversial play right there, too. That was another one they complained about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there was Franklinton is going to say that there were a lot of calls going against them. And, especially when you got these close games, and both teams are evenly matched. Cecilia and Franklinton are both evenly matched teams, and that's why you knew it was going to come down to 2 or 3 plays. And it just happened to go against Franklinton, and it happened to go towards Cecilia, and that's what happened in this football game. You kind of knew it, but yeah, you go into the fourth and final quarter. Ellis Stewart somehow making that catch, and then you saw the controversial fumble at the end. It was just
Jace.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Well, if it was ruled a fumble, is what I was saying. I think it would have stood. Either way, like whatever the call on the field was, I think it was going to stand. And I was shocked when they said that they reversed the call to a fumble. I thought it was going to stand either way. But it was just one of those things. And you got to give credit, though, to Cecilia for finding a way to win that football game. And like we mentioned, Franklinton's been kind of flirting with this all year long. They've been flirting with really close games. They've been winning all these games this year. But at some point, it's going to go against you. And that's what happened at the end. And Cecilia was able to find a way to win the game. Now, would I would have loved to see that game finish out and that drive finish out? Yes. That game was an awesome game. I would have loved to see it get down near the goal line. Can Jacob Crane lead his team down the field? Can they tie the game? This game could go into overtime. It was 35-32. They could kick the field goal. If they got another first down, we could have seen this game in overtime. Would I love to see this game in overtime? Hell yeah, I would love to see this game in overtime. But the cards weren't there, and there's a battle right now with Cecilia fans and Franklinton fans saying, "Oh, that was a fumble. That wasn't a fumble." You can make the call there, but either way, it was you can't argue against the fact that this was an evenly matched game, and going in, Grant, this was my second highest anticipated game for me that I was looking forward to watching, behind Karr and Ash. This was number 2 for me, and it lived up to the hype. Congratulations to Coach Gaines as well. He does a great job with that program. Soft spoken. He doesn't. Not very emotional coach or anything like that, but he just gets the job done. and he's a real good football coach.
When he wins, though, but when he wins, you see his personality for
Oh yeah,
sure.
you see his personality.
You see his personality for sure. I'll tell you that right now. You see his personality when he wins. He doesn't show a whole lot of emotional silence, but when they win, you will definitely see his personality. You will definitely see his personality. But anyway, Jason, I think there was a fun fact for you. Franklinton outgained Cecilia 416 to 284.
Yeah. They
consistently move the ball down the field. Now, what Cecilia did, they hit on big plays. They just didn't really have those drives, right? I mean, you saw a kickoff return for a touchdown. You saw a big passing strike from Solari to Stewart. You saw a big run from Diesel Solari at the very beginning of the game. They hit big plays. Now they're a big play offense. And that's what they do. And Franklinton's more of a methodical offense and wants to move the ball down the field. They both can move the ball. They both can score points. And Cecilia, they won it. This is a team with some seniors. They got some young guys like Braylon. That's going to be a big time player in the state of Louisiana. But there's the big controversial play.
Yeah, I don't know, bro.
Yeah, like he was losing the ball.
He was losing the ball, but that's what I'm saying. It was kind of a bro. It was a bang type of play. That's how close that call was. It was tough to see, if it was a fumble or not in real time. So this is a tough. It may have been a fumble.
Y'all need to call comments. We got comments on here. What y'all think?
Yep.
Is this a fumble or is he down?
That's the thing though. It looked like the ball was kind of moving, but does that mean it doesn't have possession? Because it looked like he had the ball, was jiggling a little bit, but I would that's what I'm saying. It's still inconclusive in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's still inconclusive.
I can see how you make the argument either way.
Yeah,
I can see why you say he was down. I can see why someone makes the argument that he did lose the ball.
And that doesn't take away from anything from Cecilia did. Cecilia is a great team.
Yeah,
Cecilia was I had Cecilia win this game. Cecilia was a lot of people had Cecilia win this game, right? Even though at the end I was saying, Jace, fucking this about win this game. And I was very confident. I was so confident that they were going to win at the end. And then the fumble happened. Because they were driving down there, Jace. They were driving. They were driving down the field.
They were around the 25, 30-yard line when it happened, I think.
Yeah.
They were
35 seconds left, too. It wasn't barely in time. They still had a lot of time to decide, okay, maybe they got that first down from that play. They go, okay, can we go for the touchdown for 3 plays and then kick the field goal? They were, they had opportunities.
I would love to see how that played out. Towards the end, I forgot what the timeout situation was. They may have had 2 timeouts or something like that at that point. But the field goal before halftime, I was from 35?
Yeah.
And he barely
36.
made it.
Yeah.
Barely made
it, I know.
So
yeah, he barely made it. Oh man.
Yeah,
he's a freshman too, by the way.
Because he kicked the game-winning field goal against Jules Sumner. The game out was that. Yeah.
He also missed the extra point too earlier.
Yep. Yeah, he did. First state championship since 1995 for Cecilia. It's been a long time coming. They were in the dome last year, and they were on the losing end of it. That's why I picked them to win it because of that experience, and I think that's helped them a little bit. But you can't hang your hat if you're Franklinton. What a season! I never want to go over who is your MVP, who is your top coach, all that. But 2 of those nominations, for head coach and for just story of the year, it still goes to Franklinton and for Nick Salter-Formaggio. This team in just 1 year turnaround. I know they went to our media day and Coach Salter-Formaggio was really excited about this year, and he was talking about how this is different. And it's one thing for you to say it, right? Of course you're going to say it, but to see it play out, and have them have the type of year, a number 1 seed, 1 loss in the regular season, and win district championship and go to the state championship. Franklinton football's back, and high school football is better for being back, and he's confident. You heard him speak before the games were even played about how confident he was that they're going to be back, and he maybe even be better next year than this year's team. So that's going to be interesting.
Which is saying a lot because they're losing a good bit of their production this year. Because they're losing, so they're still going to bring back like 2 of the receivers and like maybe like 2 of their offensive linemen. They're bringing back some key players for the defense. The quarterback, someone who's a really good player. But when he said that Hooters, I'm like, because we kind of had the media event at Hooters for all the local teams in the New Orleans area. Hooters, by the way, which is hella funny. We had it at Hooters. but hey, they're sponsors, so free food. So there you go.
Oh, yeah,
anyway,
pass that up.
But anyway, when he said, yeah, our team will be even better next year, I'm like, who they have coming back? Who do they have next year? Like, because that's kind of scary. I mean, the thing about how good they could possibly be next year if he's saying all that. And I actually asked him after the game. I was like, hey, coach, for these young, because you said you were very excited about the young guys coming up. What do you hope that these young guys learn about? Going back, this experience and how, and for this experience and how what they can learn from this experience moving forward. And he answered the question. He said because they've already been there before, they want to go back there year in and year out, and that's how you do it, man. No, when you for example, Alexandria, which we're going to talk about next. The best experience, as most of that experience sucked for Franklinton, how they lost because it was a really close one, and how much of that experience sucked for Alexandria in the fashion they lost, which was horrible. It's a great learning experience because now you know what it takes to be at the Dome, and when you already have that experience in your mind, you've already been there. It's great in your memory. Okay, I got it now. So, but Jace, any last thoughts on this game before we wrap up?
No, I mean, just congratulations to Coach Gaines for winning the state championship. I'm really happy for him. I know they're a proud supporter of Gridiron football. Really, both teams are. They're 2 of our biggest supporters of Franklinton and Cecilia. They both have players that'll be playing in their bowl game too. So, congratulations to both teams for great seasons, especially Cecilia. I don't know how and what universe they got an 18 seed, but they got it. And that gave them a little bit chip on their shoulder. Of course, finishing the job of winning the state championship, but also, anytime you can go on the road against Letcher, North DeSoto, Plaquemine, and then beat the number 1 seed, that was quite a run. Cecilia did. I mean, they have the team to do it, no matter what the seeding was. But the roads were still tough, and for them to do that and pull that off shows a lot about the Cecilia team. They should be proud for being state champions because that was a hard one to win, and they definitely deserve it.
Oh yeah, definitely, Jason. That was the most exciting game of the weekend, and I was right because these next 2 games we're going to talk about.
As those 2 games were so exciting, man. That Dunham
game. This is game of the week, man. This is the game of the week, and nothing good happened after that. Jace. Here's the people were so excited about this game, Jace. That's what makes it kind of disappointing. We were excited. We wouldn't shut up about this game. Everyone in New Orleans would shut up about this game. Everyone in Sunlaw would shut up about this game. Everyone in every single corner and pocket of this game would shut up about this game. We're all excited for it. And then really, I think somebody mentioned this in the comments earlier. Got pulled back up and maybe Raymond. No, let me go back up. But anyway, where's that? I just saw it. Oh, here you go. He said just talk about Jon Johnson. He was a little reckless, but Karr was so much better. It didn't matter. It was over when they taunted Ash before the coin toss. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's how confident. I mean, Karr was extremely. Ash was confident going in this game, but Karr, anytime you destroy all your teams, but 5 touchdowns or more, and then you beat the defending state champions the week before. I mean, should have all. I mean, look at The Rock. Look at him before the game. The band's excited. They're playing. They're really confident. And great. By the way, great camera work, Chase. By the way, getting the band involved, and then Ash gets the ball first, second play of the game, and 8-0 returns it back for a 32-yard touchdown interception return for a touchdown, and nothing just got better after that. Then Carr's next drive, that was a 46-yard touchdown pass to Charles Francis. It was ruled he was out the 1-yard line, but they came back. They found out he was able to stay in bounds, and they gave him the touchdown, 14-0 Carr. And then they got to 21-0 lead after a Jon Jon 5-yard touchdown run, which, by the way, we're not even halfway through the first quarter yet. and then it really would have been even worse if John Johnson didn't throw like 3 picks in the first half. So there's that. And then they also had 2 safeties, one by Richard Anderson, by the way, maybe it should have been the MVP of the game. I mean, he had 6 tackles for a loss, a sack, and 7 tackles. All of his tackles were behind the line of scrimmage, Jace, including the safety. Like, I mean, and it just never got better from there. I mean, what is there else to talk about? The game ended up being 53-8. Jace. Okay, I'm gonna put this. Is this the greatest Carr team of all time? Mike.
All right, now, yes is the answer. Yes is the answer. Now I've seen some really good Edna Karr teams, man. But this one, this is I just don't see a weakness. And like the biggest pet peeve from this game from Edna Karr was that your quarterback Jon Jon.
JB, I astounded him. Yeah, I mean the whole entire game.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it's different, man. Like John Johnson, at that point, the interceptions, it was already over. I mean, it was just like you trying. Hey, when you're bored, you try stuff. You know, like it's like
say football 25. That's what it was.
That's what I do in the video game. I try like running around and like even up in the middle of the field, and I usually get picked as well. But that's what it was like most of the night for JT Lindsay. I mean, it's just so much you can do against that defense. That big number 90, Richard Anderson. He was. I'm so
glad he's coming to LSU after that game. After seeing that game, I'm so glad. Oh my God, as an LSU fan,
and like I know I'm just recency bias and everything. He is the most dominant interior defensive lineman I've seen play.
You saw him last week too. You saw him the week before too against Catholic.
The most dominant interior defensive lineman I've seen. I've seen some good ones.
By the way, watch this play right here. By the way, go look.
Now I'm
like, let me just watch this. Like this is a perfect encapsulation of the game right here, right there. I mean, just Jace. Like, I mean, there was nothing they could have done. Ash is not a bad team. Like, right?
No, they're not.
Look at the schedule. They had one of the best resumes. Matter of fact, maybe the second best, probably the best resume. Actually, may have had the best resume in the state if you really think about it. Just as good as Carr's. And Karr ran him out the building. Like, oh my, bro, I can't believe it. No one can believe. Like, everyone's disappointed. Like, damn, Karr, like you couldn't make this game interesting. You couldn't like, damn, like, like you had to blow him out like that. I mean, damn.
Yeah.
It was a demolition course throughout the entire game.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, you don't know what really the weakness is for this team. I mean, I said the only thing I saw from the Catholic game was maybe the punting team can get a little work done, but it's hard to do that because you don't punt it often because of this offense. So if that's the one thing you got to work on, it shows that you're a really good football team. And this team is hungry as well. It's been since 2019 they won a state championship. That's a drought for this team. With the talent year in and year out. I mean, it's shocking it's been that long since they won a state championship. But they're hungry. They're more experienced. They're still young. Like they're losing some guys like that 14 right there. And they're
losing to all 3 of those guys right there. They're losing all 3 of them.
Losing all 3 of those guys. Albert Mitchell as well. But I know that's going to be a question mark heading to next year with the receiving core. But you get your quarterback back. Your defense is still going to be really strong, really good, and they got guys. No, so I'm not too worried about the replacing the receivers.
Nope.
So I don't think they're going to be as good as this year's team, but they're still going to be pretty damn good. And as far as like a favorite to win once again, and maybe Grant, maybe they start another 4-year run. This is the next 4-year state championship run they got going on.
I mean, Jace, I don't know about all that because I think everyone's gonna get. I think it should be a lot more even this year.
Going anywhere? Catholic ain't going anywhere.
Catholic ain't going over. I mean, Curtis. Any of those Catholic League teams, Acadiana, see Thomas More will have a lot of players. Probably, I think they have a lot of players coming back too. I mean, there's a lot of teams around the state that are it's going to be a lot more even. I mean, of course, this is the greatest team we've seen come out of this program. I mean, it's not even close, given the competition they played in the regular season and also how they won those games, too.
Yeah.
The closest win you had was against Catholic, who's the defending state champion, who was, by the way, the only team that could have beaten Karr.
Yeah.
Because, like, in terms of the matchups, the talent, how they play the game, I mean, their team is built to frustrate Karr. And they couldn't get it done. And when they couldn't get it done, I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then I don't think anybody can.
That was your de facto state championship. It was. And put it on the football field. And, I'm actually pretty impressed with Catholic after losing by 2 on the road. They're not going to be away. They're definitely going to be back. So seeing them, I just want to see both those two teams play in the Dome. They played in the semis. They played earlier in the playoffs before, but they never played in the Dome. I'm hoping we get that opportunity to see that.
Yeah, definitely, Jace. And now we get to go to the last game. Oh, by the way, before we get into the last game, I also want to mention this too. Is like in the press spot at the post game, press conference, because they have it, they have in the Saints like club room at the lower level, and like right where the Saints club seats are on the field, and that's where they have the press conference. So, the Alex Ash, it's Chris Bachman and a bunch of his 4 or 5 of his players in the press conference, and Karr's marching band. You can hear in the background, Karr's marching band was walking through, and I'm starting to think about myself. Oh my God, they're about to march right by the press conference. And it's not because I don't think they even know like the press conference. There's a press conference going on. I think they're just doing their typical ritual in the Superdome. And then they're just drumming, they're banging the drums and everything, and you can hear them coming. And then they started playing their music. And not only were they playing, it was loud outside the doors. It was going into the speakers. Like they actually had to pause the press conference for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, they had to sit in there for like what seemed like for eternity. It seemed like maybe 5. It was probably like 5 minutes, but it felt like 30. I mean,
no!
You got a feel for Alexandria.
Oh man!
After getting blown out like that, and after that in the state championship game, you see Edna Karr with the trophy. Now you got to go to this press conference and answer all the questions about how you lost by 45 points, and then you had to pause the press conference because that team's band you just lost to is celebrating and going right down outside the press conference room playing. I think it was Rock Steady. I think that's what the song that they were playing. But they're going right down there. And
Jay, I'm dying. The fact that you knew that song on the it might be Rock Steady, but the fact that you immediately said the name, I'm like, damn, Jace knows his culture, bro. What the hell's going on?
They were steady, all right. They couldn't move anywhere. But yeah, I mean that was rough. Just having to sit there. I felt for Coach Popman and the players.
Oh my God!
But how you control the situation? Like, do you was that the LHSAA's fault? Is that the band's fault? Like what? I don't
think it's the band because I don't think the band knew. I really don't think the band knew. They're just doing their routine. I don't think anybody knew, and that's all those bands like when they leave the stadium, they play songs. That's what they've all. I think they had no idea that the press conference going on right there. And I think for future references to prevent that, I think they're going to tell, hey, you want to play, go away from them. Like, there's got to be some way where the band can enter in and play whatever music they have.
Before the players come in or something, but I'm not following really anybody in that situation because that just.
Maybe you can put in a different room. The bands, there's going to be some preventive measures because not only that, the sound that the band was playing was going through the speakers. Like, it wasn't going through the door; it was going through the speakers as well. So there's gonna be some things that are gonna be put in place for next year so to prevent that from happening again. But speaking of Alexandria, man, of course you got Phil Bachman. I mean, he led this team. And this is a team he built from the ground up.
Yeah.
Remember, his dad was the head coach of Calvary Baptist.
Yeah.
And they had all the resources. He had to build this program from the ground up, basically sitting down from the ground up, but to get where it needs to be an elite program from the ground up.
Yeah.
And they're going to get there again, right? Oh, yeah. All the best talent in Cenla is going to Alexandria. They're going to get there again, and they're going to win it because I already know what it takes not only to get there, but to play in that type of environment, right? Yeah. They just went up against a generational Karr team that, we're going to see many talented teams go through Karr, but we're not going to see that. Right, because they were dominant throughout the whole entire year. So nothing to take away from Ash. But also, I want to mention this too because I was watching the broadcast for 446 with Doug Gann.
Yeah,
you can tell they were really excited the game. And as the game went on, quieter. Like, oh man, what are we watching? That's what everybody was. That's what everybody except for Karr. But that's what everyone in the building was like,
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can see the comments in the YouTube chat. Like, they were like, who's excited for the Saints game? They're talking about the NFL, like, the fantasy and all that type of stuff. I'm like, oh, my God. Like, this is bad. They're talking about – the fact they're talking about fantasy football in arguably the biggest game of the weekend just shows you how disappointing that game was overall. It sucked. And I felt bad for Ash. I'm glad Karr won. I felt bad for Ash. And really, I was just like, man, this was not the game. It was like, it's like the movie you're really excited for. And then all of a sudden, like, oh my God, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
So it was this year's version of Joker 2?
Yes. But I knew Joker 2 was going to be bad. That's the difference. I knew Joker 2 was going to be bad. Joker 2 was going to be bad. I knew. I think they did it on purpose, in my opinion, for different reasons. That's the topic for another. That's for another different time. But anyway, let's move on to the next game, which was a bummer as well.
Yeah.
But it was shocking. So it was like, oh my God, what am I seeing? Right, like. What is going on? Like, I saw all the Central fans reacting because Central blew out a Ruston team that had been to the Dome. This is their third straight appearance to the Dome. They lost their first one in the final 2 minutes of the game. They won their second one, 31-17, over Zachary, a team that never lost in the Dome before in their program's history. And then you come back next year. You're just coming off a 44-7 victory over a red-hot Desiree team. Full of talent, and then Ruston. No one expected Ruston to lay in a complete egg in the state championship game, Jace. Like, Central got in the lead. Central got in the lead early on with a 59-yard touchdown pass from Jackson Furman to Keithan Womack, like the second play of the game.
Yeah.
Central gets the ball back. 2 plays later, that Joshua Brantley mishandles the shotgun snap. It gets picked up by DK Mays, and he runs it 18 yards for the scoop and score. And then it just gets worse and
DK
worse and worse
before scoring. Another thing, DK almost dropped that ball before scoring. It's like, man, we got away with them. But you can continue there, Grant, because that was shocking.
They got Central drives on the play, 15 plays, 69 yards. They wasted 9 minutes off the clock to take a 21-0 lead, and at that point, Joe Edelson, who runs Recruit Louisiana and also does a lot of stuff with TigerBait.com in terms of recruiting, getting like game highlights of a certain player or whatever. she was sitting right next to me, and she was excited too because like her son went to Central and everything, right? So she was excited. But I told her, I told her, it's like, Joe, this game's over. It's like, well, you can't count on Ruston. It's like, yeah, you can't count on Ruston, but looking at this, like knowing Ruston, how they are offensive, how they're built offensively, and also the fact they've never been in this situation before, really. And if you look at their body language throughout the game, I was like, Joe, this game's over.
They were just fun. They came out late too. I'm not sure you remember. It's like, man,
I remember. Yeah, they came out like Central came out early. I'm like, okay, Central came out early, but then it's not you mentioned that. I'm like, did Ruston come out late?
They really did.
I mean, what was going on? I mean, just the whole day. It was just weird seeing Ruston play like that.
It was just flat. I mean, there was no emotion. You never really saw it. They just kind of ran to the sideline, and it just seemed like they weren't really ready. I don't know. It was just they weren't ready to play, or it was just flat from the very beginning.
Yeah. By the way, Glenn Harris, Central High School had the best defense of the state this year. Prove me wrong.
I'll have to prove you wrong. I agree.
The game right before.
If there's any other argument,
a lot.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Central definitely has the second best. The only reason I say they're the second best is because they
just talent from across the board, right?
Central will suffocate you. Carr wants to destroy you and humiliate you. And this is the one takeaway I have from the game. Like Richard Anderson, when he stuffed JT Lindsay behind the line of scrimmage.
Oh yeah.
He had him and he pushed him. I was like, Jace. Like they're about to
future teammate,
man. They're both. That's the future teammate in like 2 years. And he pushed him. He straight up pushed him. I'm like, my God. And that's like saying you're wrong. I'm not trying to say like a poo-poo like such a defense. I'm just saying like the only reason why I disagree with you is because I watched Carr 3 or 4 different times, and they just bully opponents in arguably the toughest district in the league. They beat Rummel, a team that beat U High, a U High team that ended up being Catholic. Like Carr beat them 69-28. Rummel was like a legit quarterfinal, semifinal type team. They beat them 69-28. By the way, nice. But anyway, what I'm saying, so that's the only reason I just I truly believe Central had a great defense. That's why I believe Central had a chance to win this game. Although I didn't pick Central to win. I said the reason why Central has a chance to win is because how great their defense is. If you look at Carr's defense and look at where the dudes are committing to, I mean, go through Central's schedule. Look at their path to the dome, brother. St. Thomas More averaged 45 points a game. St. Thomas More only scored 14 against Carr.
Let me say this:
I'm not. I think Central's defense is great, but Carr. So, my God,
it's more vital to their success.
Yes. And I'll say that, yes.
Yeah.
Because their team is built around their defense. Yes.
Right. They lean heavily on that defense. And the Carr, even when their defense is a little off, their offense can score 60 points.
A little. By the way, a little. Which is insane.
Yeah, right.
When
they give up 30, or something like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, it's like comparing apples and oranges. I mean, these are the two most elite defenses in the state.
By the way, and also it's not like I'm not poo-pooing Central's defense. By the way, Central's defense allowed 35 points to Catholic. Carr only allowed 19.
Yeah.
What I'm saying?
That's the similar opponent that you played.
They played similar opponents, and and that's my basis, right? I think I think these are the two best defenses for sure, right? I think for Central, their defense is more integral to the success than Carr's was because how great Carr was offensively. But a lot of people forgot how great Carr is defensively because of how explosive their offense is. Their Carr defensively, my God. That gets lost in the sauce, given how great their offense is.
Defense won them the Catholic game.
It did. Yes, the game. Yes,
it won them the Catholic game. Because their offense was off. I mean,
Yeah.
Catholic's defense did a great job against Catholic's defense kept Catholic in the game, so it was a defensive battle, and yeah, I mean both teams are great defensively in their own ways. Both have studs on the defensive line, the defensive fronts as well. So, but one thing that Central did do was they put on one of the most dominant performances in Prep Classic history in the Dome. I don't think I've ever seen a defense performance as dominant.
I mean, both of them. I mean, both the performances were awesome. I mean, you saw back-to-back defensive masterclasses. I mean, shoot, Ash only scored 8 points. I mean, Ash had a hard time trying to do anything. The only reason Ash got the ball as many times as it is because Karr turned the ball over 4 times, like threw 4 interceptions. I mean,
Lindsey ran for 115 yards. I saw the final stats. He ran for 115. I think he broke up like one maybe 40-yard run.
Yeah, he had a 40-yard run, but that's about it. I mean, he really didn't do much. I mean, but also Central only allowed 90 rushing. I mean, but going back to the game or recap though. Stephen Rennell, 40-yard touchdown, 40-yard touchdown reception for Jackson Furman, about 20-0. And then, of course, Jackson Furman threw a 14-yard touchdown pass to make it 35-0 at the start of the half. And that's when I was like, okay, I left early. I'm like, my head hurts. I'm tired. Like, this game's over. I'm like, and then they scored again. I got in the car, they scored again. I'm like, what was the point? I mean, my God. I mean, they laid a butt whipping. I mean, as bad as those games were, those were by far 2 of the most dominating performances we probably ever seen back-to-back. It's just I've covered high school football here in the state. I mean, Jace, you've covered a little bit longer than I have. I mean, when was the last time you saw 2 back-to-back deep performances like that? Karr against Alexandria, and then Central against Ruston, because my God.
Not back-to-back, not like that. I've never seen a running clock in the Superdome once. I've seen some blowouts, but I've never seen
back-to-back
like that. At that level too. And I think Jared put out a stat that was the biggest blowout for Class 5A Division I history. Was that Karr game?
Yeah, 45 points.
45 points. So that was the largest margin of victory in Class 5A Division I.
Shoot, it could have been Central too, because remember Central. They threw that wheel route to number 20, and he dropped it. That would have been a touchdown too. And that was the drive they missed the field goal.
Yeah,
so it could have been Central too. I mean, but by the way, like I'm just cut. So for Central, I'm just kind of do this game by game. Central, Alkane, Ruston, 317 to 90. Karr, on the other hand, for total yardage, 512 to 188.
Yeah. I mean, that just tells the story. Usually yardage doesn't tell all of it. Yeah, that told all the story and then some. Alexandria, I guess it's weird. Even though it was by a larger margin of victory, I guess the touchdown, the 4 interceptions felt like Ash was a little bit better than Ruston. Just because Ruston only had 90 yards of offense and only the one interception as well, which that was returned for 44 yards. So Ruston's defense had about half yardage, same as far as like production and output as their offense did. Their offense only had 90 yards, and their defense had a 44-yard interception return. So that can tell you there of how this game was going to be. But one positive, did they block 2 field goals? Or they missed 2 field goals?
I know one of them was missed. The one I saw was missed.
Yeah, I think they blocked another field goal. But I guess that's a positive for Ruston. There weren't many positives to I was going over the MVP, and I was like, the MVP voting, because I was in the press box for that game. I picked Jackson Furman, and I'm like, who do I who do I even pick for MVP for Ruston?
Jaden Anding.
I put Jaden Anning because Jaden Anning had the most tackles. He had 3 TFLs and a PBU. I was like,
And the interception. Yeah, the interception as well.
yeah. So I put him down because I didn't know who else to really put in that football game. So yeah, it was all Central from the very start to the very finish, and I kind of like, I was like, man, it's the 8th game, 3 straight days. Maybe I'm delirious. Maybe I had to kind of like slap myself silly, like, all right, wake up, Jace. Make sure this isn't a dream. Nope. It's Central's dominating this game. So fortunately, because at least a 225 can bring home some award. So we're fortunate in that aspect.
That was the block field goal right there.
So that was the block field goal. I knew they blocked the field goal, but
yeah,
it got I was going to get worried about my 225 not getting a championship, but Central pulled through at the very end.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, short there, but anyway, yeah, I mean, my God, I mean, just absolute domination from Central. Also, we said before the Prep Classic that Jackson Furman needed to have a big game because he struggled throughout the end, and some of that has to do with his injury. Stuff at the beginning of the year because of the car crash. But anyway, and he did have a big game. 17 for 28, 233 yards and 5 touchdowns and an interception. I mean, what a performance by him in his last game ever as a Central Wildcat. And these type of games, man, the state championship games. If you have a big game, your name will live on forever in your school's lore. That game was a legacy, Jackson Furman legacy game for sure.
Did it kind of feel like Daniel Beal's last game in a way? Like
it was in a sense, yeah, but also Daniel Beal threw for damn near 400 yards. Like he still holds the most he threw for the most passing yards in state championship history.
Right.
In that performance. I mean, it was like that. Yeah. It was similar like that, but like Daniel Beal threw for David 400. Like there was, it was like, exactly. It was like that. Maybe the offensive production is a little bit larger for Catholic per se, but like just in terms of how flawless it was offensively, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
It kind of had that feeling to it, and Central also knew what their defense was doing, so it was like we can afford to maybe have a drive or here slack off because we knew our defense was just so dominant. But just really comes to show you what Central has built in just a matter of 2 years.
Yeah, by the way,
job.
Yeah, and also want to mention too, also Daniel Beal too. That was also his 3rd championship 4 years, so it's a little bit of a different feel. It's like, here's the greatest quarterback in Catholic history. For Jackson Furman, it was like, all right, I'm gonna win my community the first state title since 1966, which was their first and only state championship appearance. So I mean, also we have to talk about David Semino.
Yeah,
I mean, him and Nick Saltaformaggio, who both did it in the same year, are the only 2 coaches to lead 3 different programs to 5 championships. I mean, Jace, what a job! And before we wrap this up, what a great job that David Semino has done to the Central program. A lot of people, like you said earlier, a lot of people thought he was crazy for leaving Catholic, because Catholic had all the resources to leave for a program like Central, who's usually been the most underachieving program, not only just in the Baton Rouge area, but in the state as a whole, because they're a lot like Sacre in a way where they have their own school district, they have the money to produce the resources needed, and they have the talent. And, they hired it. And that just shows you why hiring the right coach, not only having the right administration, I also have the right resources and everything, but how important a coach is to be the cherry on top to building a state championship caliber program.
Yeah, the stars align, right? It's not only about the administration finding the right coach and right fit, but it's that coach finding that right school as well. I think it's just been a really good marriage, really for David Semino and for Central High School. Like you mentioned, like Zachary, Zachary hasn't always been this, with David Burton. You have to go back and they haven't been that type of program until You saw Neil Weiner, do some things over there, and obviously David Brewerton really took the next step. But Central, I mean, I followed David Semino for a while. I was covering him when he was at Catholic Point Capee, and to see him and his evolution, right, going up the coaching ranks. He's a Kenny Guillot guy, Parkview Baptist, and Parkview won all those state championships. He played for Kenny, growing up in that. I mean, that shows you that tree, right? That should tell you all about him, right? Because Coach Guillot, was one of the greats in Baton Rouge as far as coaching, and to learn under him and just kind of take what he's had and take it and use it as his own, and just see how he's grown and how he's improved as an uprising young head football coach, whether it was like Catholic Point Capee, then making that next challenge. A lot of people weren't sure if he was ready for the Catholic High job, and then he wins a state championship. The second year goes to the semifinals, and then you thought, okay, he's going to have a great career at Catholic High, but he said he wanted a different path, and he wanted to go to Central and form his own legacy. And a lot of people were questioning that too. It was like, okay, but like they're questioning him being the coach of Catholic, and he proved all the doubters wrong there. And you saw, like, why would you leave Catholic for Central? I don't know. That's going to do good, but like, he saw his vision. He knew what his program was going to be, and he's done an awesome job of leading this program to a state championship. Coach Semino is one of the hottest coaching names in high school football right now, and it'll be interesting to me what his plans are as well. I'm sure he hasn't really thought about it, but where does he go from here? He can be a guy that can continue to be at Central and maybe build it into a Zachary, or who knows if he wins once again, he might be against some college offers as well if he wins like that. So it's going to be interesting to follow Coach Semino in his coaching journey, and he's one of the hottest coaches right now, and he's got a staff. Grant, they were on Catholic staff. I mean, Coach Camp was the defensive coordinator, and he's a college coach. He was at Catholic too. And Coach Morris, he was at Catholic as the OC. So those guys know what it takes to win state championships. So when Central was able to get the staff over, you knew good things were going to happen, and the talent was there. Everything was just aligning great, and Central, they are a sleeping giant, and for them to win the state championship, just watch out for this program, what they can do, because I don't think it's not a 1 year done and deal. I think this can be a team that can make a couple more big time runs in the future.
And yeah, Jason, that's something I mentioned last year when I was with you guys over there at Gridiron, was that, if they beat Neville, they had a great shot going to the state championship. And really, they were really the touchdown game, which is famous for, of course, Carter Hamberry's knee being down. He got up, scored the game-winning touchdown. And, that still is leaves a lot of bad taste in Central fans' mouth. But if they win that game, I think they would have beat Zachary the next week. Yeah. They should have beat him in the regular season. I really believe they could have made the state championship last season.
They really could have.
If you think about it, because they were probably better last year, in my opinion. They probably were better as a team.
Yeah.
In terms of who they had.
Right. Because they lost some guys. I think Aiden Wilkinson was the tight end.
The center, Andrew Richard.
Andrew Richard, he was a great player as well.
With Damon Blocker.
Yep, he was an awesome player for him. So, you're probably, on paper, they're probably the better team last year. But you do return your leaders. You return the Mays brothers, Stephen Ronnell, your quarterback Jackson Furman, and some of that leadership, and just trying to figure out how to win, learning how to win. I think that's what helped this team get over the edge this year. They were like a Catholic. That team in 2015 that finally broke through and won state. They weren't the most talented team. They weren't a overly talented team, but they were senior led, and they knew how to close games out. They figured out, so that's what made that team successful.
By the way, Jace, I also want to mention this too. Speaking of the 2015 Catholic team, who still has the most receiving yards in a game in state championship history?
Receiving yards in state championship history. Who?
It's Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
It's Clyde?
Yep, 161 yards. That's still the same record. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know that.
Yep. Quad had a big game in that state championship game. Ian Bryan was the quarterback. One of the guys I graduated with, Ian Bryan and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That was a great team, and
Oh, that's right. I forgot you're in the same graduating class as Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
So Clyde was a grade behind me, so I was in between Clyde and Darius. So Darius was a grade above me, and Clyde was a grade below me. So
You're a class of 16, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to double check that. So
I was a junior when they.
Yeah. So receiver. Yeah. No. I'm tripping. It's for composite, it's Robert Davis. But I think it was for the 5A state championship. I saw for 5A. Yeah, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire with 161 yards.
Yep. I tried tackling that dude in practice. Not fun.
Yeah.
Not fun.
Yeah. Not fun. And not fun at all, indeed.
No.
That is Jace. But Jace, before we wrap things up, just what's your biggest takeaway from the state championship weekend?
Yeah, Grant, this was a great weekend, and it just shows how the sport of high school football is just growing bigger and better in Louisiana. Like, think about, I just said at the beginning of the show, we don't have a repeat state champion here. All these teams are new teams that won state this year. We don't have a repeat champion. So it comes to show you that there's new blood. The parity is really good. I think the LHSAA has done an awesome job, Grant, in terms of with the playoff brackets. I think it's the best that they've done since the private and public split, as far as creating some parity, some really good competition, and just clean, really good football. I think the product has been as good as it's really been. You saw in the dome, and now the last day it was what it was, but it was shocking. Like, nobody expected to see what happened the last two games, but the first 6 games, I mean, those are all great games. And it was a great 3-day weekend. I think it was a bounce back weekend overall compared to last year. And it was a good weekend, I thought, for the most part, for the LHSAA. So always great to have 3 great days of football. State championship is always my favorite time of the year. And I appreciate Andy, Bryson, and our Gridiron football crew for allowing us to cover the state championships again. And looking forward to covering next year. It's a great event. It's a great way to get our minds off just a little bit from that chaos of the bowl game and just enjoy some football. But yeah, everybody did a great job. Gotta give a shout out to Alex Allison, Logan Graffia, and Billy Metcalf for taking the photos for some great shots. You go look to our website, GridironFootballUSA.com. Billy took some really good photos, so go check them out. A great weekend at the Superdome. I thought it was a great 3-day event, and the only thing that's bad about the state championships is once that's over, you realize that there's no more football left. So that's always the bad thing about that, besides the All-Star games. But great season, and this has been one of the more entertaining seasons I've covered for high school football as a whole.
Yeah, definitely, Jace. And so my biggest takeaway was all the West Bank, really New Orleans. Lafayette and the West Bank both going 3-0. Of course, Lafayette. When I'm talking about Lafayette area, I'm talking about Vermilion Catholic, Cecilia, and Catholic Iberia. And then also for the West Bank the West Bank, Shaw, South Blackman, of course, Edna Karr, all going 3-0. I think the big time wins for all of those programs. But then also, Jace, I also want to give thanks to all the people who not only watch Ruger Sports Media, but also want to give a shout out to Ken Trahan for letting me write all the articles up on Christie Sports. I produce a lot of articles about them, and so about all the teams across the state since the beginning of the summer, doing previews, game articles, also appearing on the radio, doing radio stuff for the state championship games, for allowing me to do that opportunity. So I want to give a huge shout out to Ken Trahan, Jude Young, Lenny Vingolder for allowing me the opportunity to do what I love, and which is to cover sports in not only New Orleans area around the state, but also high school football, which I love to do. And then also I want to give a shout out for all the writers who have worked hard throughout the season to produce the best content, not only for our viewers to enjoy, but also for the people that we cover. Because it's not only it's bigger than us. It's about because the people we cover, we don't know what they're going through each and every day of their life, and if they're having a sad day, and the one thing that brings them joy is us covering them, then it's worth it. And I think that's the biggest thing you got to take away, especially when you cover a sport like high school football.
Oh yeah,
right? Because you're covering people in the city, you're covering people in the suburb, and you're covering people in rural communities that don't get a lot of attention. And so that's what I love about covering high school football in the state of Louisiana. And this isn't the last show. Me and just going to have a season recap show. We'll let you know when that's going to happen. We'll say who's our best team, best story, most surprising thing about this year, best coach, you name it. We're gonna set that later date. Of course, Jace is really busy with the bowl game, so we're gonna get this. And also, I'm gonna be really not gonna say busy, but I'm trying to calm down a bit because right now we're kind of in a little bit of a dead period before the new year happens, and then you're back into basketball and baseball and stuff like that. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching tonight's show. Thanks for watching us throughout the season. My name is Grace Sasher. I'm the host of Friday Nights in Bayou, the owner of Ruger Sports Media, and also a reporter and columnist for Crest City Sports. This is Jace LeJeune of Gridiron Football, and he's done a great job covering high school football and also LSU football throughout the season. We're glad that things are kind of winding down, so we're not as stressed. But, we're going to have one last show before we wrap things up before, of course, the 2025 season, unless me or Jace move to Malaysia or something like that. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.